Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the true sage who mastered all Force ability. Ties Naruto x Ahsoka Tano x Bastila Shan x vs Marr Star Wars. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. The Convergence Rift. The air crackled with unnatural energy. Naruto Uzumaki stood atop the reconstructed stone head of Hashirama Senju, his blue eyes narrowed again. The peculiar light emanating from the Valley of the End. 3 years had passed since the Fourth Shinobi World War, and the hero of Konoha had expected peace, not this strange phenomenon that had appeared without warning 2 nights prior. You feel it too, don't you, Kurama? Naruto murmured, his consciousness brushing against the 9-tailed fox sealed within him. This isn't chakra, the beast rumbled, uncharacteristic caution in his ancient voice. At least, not entirely. It resembles natural energy, but wrong, somehow. Twisted. Wind whipped Naruto's short blonde hair as he adjusted the black headband bearing Konoha's symbol. At 20, he'd grown taller, his frame lean but powerful, his whisker-marked face sharper with maturity. His orange and black attire remained, now complemented by the white Hokage-style cloak Kakashi had presented him, emblazoned with sage in kanji rather than 7th, as the village awaited his eventual succession. Granny Tsunade and Kakashi-sensei said to observe only. Naruto said with a half-smile. But when have I ever been good at sitting back? Foolish as always, Kurama grumbled, but Naruto detected the fond amusement beneath the complaint. With practiced ease, Naruto formed a familiar cross-shaped hand seal. Shadow Clone Jutsu. 4 perfect duplicates appeared beside him in puffs of smoke. You guys know the drill. Create a perimeter and signal if anything changes. His clones nodded and scattered, leaping with chakra-enhanced bounds across the forest. The original Naruto descended toward the valley floor, where water and stone had once been carved by the legendary battle between Hashirama and Madara. Now, an iridescent tear in reality pulsed where the statue's fingers once touched. The rift hung suspended 3 meters above the water's surface, an irregular, vertical slash through the air itself. Through it, impossible stars and nebulae swirled in patterns that hurt Naruto's eyes. Occasionally, the tear widened slightly, releasing bursts of energy that sent ripples across the lake's surface. Naruto crouched on a boulder, gathering natural energy as he entered sage mode. The familiar sensati on of nature's power flowing into him was accompanied by something else, an unfamiliar current that made the hair on his arms stand on end. That's definitely not normal, he muttered, golden pigmentation forming around his eyes. With his enhanced perceptions, he could now see filaments of unfamiliar energy extending from the rift-like roots, burrowing into the surrounding area. A memory surfaced, Sasuke describing dimensional transitions during his travels. It's like someone's trying to create a doorway, Naruto realized aloud. But who, and to where? As if responding to his question, the rift pulsed violently, expanding to twice its previous size. The water beneath it began to spiral upward, defying gravity. Okay, that's enough observation. Naruto formed a Rasengan in his right hand, the sphere of chakra spinning with brilliant intensity. Time to see what happens when I... The words died in his throat as the rift suddenly flared with blinding light. One of his shadow clones, positioned at the valley's edge, shouted a warning before dispelling from a wave of energy. Kurama, Naruto called internally as he felt himself being pulled toward the rift. Join our chakras, now. The fox commanded. Golden energy enveloped Naruto as he accessed 6 paths sage mode, his body glowing as 9 truth-seeking orbs materialized behind him. He formed a chakra arm to anchor himself to the stone. But the pull intensified. The rift was no longer passive, it seemed to be actively drawing him in. Something's targeting me specifically, Naruto realized, feeling the energy hooks latching onto his chakra network. Despite his immense power, he was being reeled in like a fish. This energy, it's resonating with your 6 paths chakra, Kurama growled. Disrupting our connection. I can't. The fox's voice fragmented as Naruto lost his grip. He flew toward the rift, twisting midair to cast a chakra chain backward, a technique borrowed from his mother's arsenal. The golden chain stretched, thinned, then snapped as the rift's maw engulfed him. Naruto experienced a sensation of being simultaneously compressed into a single point and stretched across infinite space. Colors he had no names for flashed across his vision. For a disorienting moment, he glimpsed multiple realities overlaid upon one another, worlds where different choices had been made, lives unlived, possibilities unrealized. Then darkness. Consciousness returned in fragments. First came sound, the mechanical whir of something unfamiliar, followed by distant explosions. Then smell, smoke, burning metal, and unfamiliar chemicals. Touch followed, coarse soil beneath his fingers, different from Fire Country's rich earth. Finally, vision returned as Naruto forced his eyes open, wincing against sunlight filtering through dust and smoke. He lay in a shallow crater, his clothes singed but intact. The golden chakra mode had dissipated, leaving him in his standard form. A quick internal check revealed Kurama was present but unconscious, a concerning development he'd never experienced before. "Where the hell am I?" Naruto groaned, pushing himself to his feet. The landscape answered with alien certainty, nowhere he had ever been. Twin suns hung in a rust-colored sky above a valley of red soil and strange vegetation. Distant mesas rose like sentinels over a landscape that bore no resemblance to any nation in the elemental countries. More pressing than the unfamiliar geography were the sounds of battle. Beyond a ridge to his left, flashes of red light punctuated by explosions suggested conflict. Naruto's instincts kicked in immediately. Whatever world this was, civilians in danger remained civilians in danger. Still disoriented but recovering quickly, he sprinted toward the ridge, chakra enhancing his already formidable speed. Cresting the rise, he froze at the impossible scene below. A small settlement of domed structures nestled in the valley was under attack. The defenders weren't shinobi, but simple villagers with primitive projectile weapons. Their attackers, however, defied comprehension, skeletal metal beings moving with mechanical precision, firing red energy beams from arm-mounted weapons. "What kind of puppets are those?" Naruto muttered, thinking of Sasori's creations. But these were different, uniformly tan with backpack-like components and elongated heads. They advanced in formation, their movements synchronized and emotionless. A female villager screamed as one of the metal attackers cornered her child. Naruto's body moved before conscious thought, one moment on the ridge, the next intercepting the metal being's weapon arm with a kunai. The clash of metal against metal produced a shower of sparks. The mechanical attacker's photoreceptors focused on Naruto, head tilting in what might have been confusion. "Unidentified combatant detected," it stated in a thin, artificial voice. "Assessing threat level." "Threat level," Naruto growled, pushing back against the surprisingly strong metal arm. "I'll show you a threat." With his free hand, he delivered a chakra-enhanced punch to the machine's midsection. The impact crumpled its chassis-like paper, sending components flying as the mechanical being collapsed. The child and mother stared at him with wide eyes. Human eyes, Naruto noted with relief, though their clothing and appearance were as foreign as the landscape. "Get to safety," he instructed, gesturing toward the settlement's center where other villagers were barricading themselves in the largest structure. More mechanical beings turned toward him, their weapons redirecting. Naruto counted at least 30, with more appearing over the far ridge. "Roger, Roger. Target priority reassigned," announced one that appeared to be a commander. Distinguished by yellow markings, all units focus fire on the human combatant. A hail of red energy bolts streaked toward Naruto. With reflexes honed through years of dodging jutsu, he weaved between the deadly projectiles, analyzing their trajectory and speed. Not as fast as lightning techniques, but potentially just as lethal. Shadow clone jutsu. Naruto created 20 duplicates that immediately scattered across the battlefield, drawing fire and engaging the mechanical soldiers in close combat. The attacking force seemed momentarily confused by the multiplication of their target. This confusion turned to mechanical panic as clones began dismantling droids with taijutsu strikes and kunai. "Multiple identical organic signatures detected," the commander droid reported. "Tactical analysis failure. Requesting reinforcements," and its transmission ended abruptly as Naruto's clone dropkicked its head clean off its shoulders. The decapitated droid stumbled briefly before collapsing in a heap of twitching metal. Naruto formed a Rasengan in his palm, the spiraling chakra sphere humming with power. He charged the nearest cluster of droids, driving the technique into their midst. Rasengan. The explosion of chakra sent fragmented droids flying in all directions. Villagers who had paused to watch the one-sided battle cheered as mechanical parts rained down around them. A larger transport crested the ridge, disgorging another 20 droids and a more substantial threat, a hovering tank with twin cannons. That doesn't look friendly, Naruto muttered. Without Kurama's active assistance, he'd need to be more conservative with chakra, but the civilians' safety remained priority. Forming hand seals rapidly, Naruto took a deep breath. Wind style. Rasenshuriken. The spinning disk of wind chakra materialized above his palm, screeching with contained power. With a practiced motion, Naruto hurled it toward the tank. The technique crossed the distance in an instant, expanding on impact into a perfect sphere of microscopic wind blades. The tank disintegrated, along with the 12 droids unfortunate enough to be caught in the technique's area of effect. Remaining machines paused their advance, as if reassessing the situation. Tactical retreat advised, one droid announced. Unknown enemy combatant possesses prohibited weaponry. Withdrawal to. A new sound cut through the battlefield, the distinctive hum of energy weapons unlike the droids, blasters. From the opposite ridge descended a sleek spacecraft that Naruto couldn't begin to categorize. As it landed between the settlement and the remaining droids, its ramp descended, revealing a young female figure wielding twin beams of glowing white light. The newcomer moved with astonishing speed and grace, the energy blades cutting through droids with elegant precision. Her acrobatic fighting style reminded Naruto somewhat of the Hyuga clan's fluid movements, though with lethal efficiency. That left nothing but bisected mechanical parts in her wake. Naruto and his remaining clones regrouped, watching in fascination as the warrior single-handedly decimated the droid reinforcements. Behind her, white-armored soldiers with helmets reminiscent of samurai masks emerged from the ship, firing advanced weapons at the retreating mechanical forces. When the last droid fell, silence descended over the battlefield. The warrior deactivated her energy blades, revealing her full appearance, a young woman perhaps Naruto's age or slightly younger, with orange-red skin marked by white patterns. And distinctive head tails instead of hair. Her attire consisted of fitted armor panels over a burgundy bodysuit, practical yet allowing full range of movement. She turned toward Naruto, eyes narrowing with suspicion. Now that the immediate threat had passed, she seemed far more concerned with his presence than the dismantled droids. "I've never seen anyone fight like that," she called out, her accent unfamiliar yet her words somehow comprehensible to Naruto. "And I've definitely never seen anyone generate energy weapons without a lightsaber. Who are you, and what are you doing on Felucia?" Naruto dispelled his remaining shadow clones, causing the woman's eyes to widen slightly. He raised his hands in a non-threatening gesture. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. As for what I'm doing here, I was hoping someone might be able to tell me that." The white-armored soldiers formed a perimeter around the village while their commander approached, his armor distinguished by blue markings. "Commander Tano, the remaining clankers are retreating to their ships. Should we pursue?" The woman, Commander Tano, kept her eyes fixed on Naruto. "No, Rex, have the men secure the village and treat any wounded. I'll handle our unexpected ally." "Yes, Commander." The soldier named Rex hesitated. "He doesn't look like any separatist agent I've ever seen, but those abilities." "I know," she replied quietly. "I'll be careful." As Rex withdrew, the woman approached Naruto with measured steps, her stance ready for any sudden movements. Up close, Naruto could see she was younger than he initially thought. Perhaps 17 or 18, but her eyes held the weathered experience of someone who had seen extensive combat. "I'll ask again, who are you?" No evasions this time, Naruto sighed, scratching the back of his head. "I really am Naruto Uzumaki, shinobi of the Hidden Leaf Village. I was investigating a strange energy disturbance near my home when I got pulled through some kind of portal. Next thing I knew, I was here." He gestured around. "Wherever here is." The woman's expression remained skeptical. "Felucia is an outer rim world currently contested between Republic and Separatist forces. You're claiming you're from another planet." "Another planet?" Naruto blinked in surprise. "I was thinking another country, but, wait, you're saying we're not even on the same world anymore?" Something in his genuine confusion seemed to register with her. Her posture relaxed slightly, though wariness remained in her eyes. I'm Ahsoka Tano, Jedi Padawan and Commander in the Grand Army of the Republic. She introduced herself formally. And based on your confusion and those abilities, I'm starting to believe you really aren't from around here. The term, Jedi, meant nothing to Naruto. But he recognized authority when he heard it. Look, I didn't mean to intrude on your war, I guess. I just saw civilians in danger and reacted. Ahsoka's expression softened marginally. That much I believe. Those techniques though, they're not any Force abilities I've ever seen. Force? Naruto questioned. Is that what you call chakra here? Chakra. It was Ahsoka's turn to look confused. I don't know that term. The Force is what gives a Jedi power. It's an energy field created by all living things. Despite the alien terminology, something resonated with Naruto's understanding of natural energy. That sounds similar to what we call chakra, at least partly. Their conversation was interrupted as Rex returned with an update. Village is secure, Commander. No civilian casualties thanks to our friend's intervention. The wounded are being treated. He turned to Naruto. Whatever you did to that tank was impressive. Never seen anything like it. Thanks, Naruto replied with a small grin. It's called Recentrican, wind nature chakra shaped into a projectile. Rex's helmet tilted slightly. Right, I'll just finish the perimeter check. He retreated tactfully, clearly. Why recognizing a conversation beyond his expertise? Ahsoka crossed her arms. You showed up right as a separatist attack was happening, wielding unknown powers, with no identification or explanation of how you arrived. You understand why that's suspicious, right? Naruto nodded. I'd be suspicious too. Where I'm from, we don't trust strangers who suddenly appear in the middle of battles either. And where exactly is that? You mentioned a hidden leaf village. Kanahagakure, in the land of fire, Naruto explained, realizing how foreign it must sound. One of the 5 great shinobi nations on the continent. Ahsoka frowned. There's no record of such a place in any star system I know of. She studied him intently, then closed her eyes briefly, her expression concentrating. Naruto fell. A subtle probing sensation. Not physical, but similar to when another sensor-type ninja tried to read his chakra signature. Instinctively, he raised mental barriers. Ahsoka's eyes snapped open in surprise. You blocked me. Not many can resist a Jedi's Force probes so easily. I felt you trying to, read my mind? Naruto asked defensively. Not your thoughts. I was trying to sense your intentions through the Force. She seemed genuinely puzzled. Your energy signature is unlike anything I've encountered. It's vibrant, almost overwhelming. The conversation might have continued, Bu. A commotion from the village interrupted them. A villager was running toward them, gesturing urgently toward the mountains. Commander, the man called out. The temple. It's reacting to the battle. The crystals are resonating like never before. Ahsoka's attention immediately shifted. What temple? She asked sharply. Sacred cave in the mountains, the villager explained, pointing toward a distant peak. Ancient site with crystals that glow. Our ancestors worshipped there before the Republic discovered Felucia. Since the fighting started, the crystals have been active, but now. Kyber crystals, Ahsoka murmured with sudden intensity. Here, that wasn't in any Republic survey. She turned to Naruto. This might be connected to your appearance. The timing is too coincidental. Naruto nodded, relieved at the potential lead. Then let's check it out. If there's a way for me to get home, I need to find it. Ahsoka considered him for a moment before coming to a decision. Rex, she called to the soldier. Maintain position here with the men. I'm taking our visitor to investigate the temple, the villagers reported. Alone, Commander? Rex questioned, concern evident despite his helmeted visage. If he wanted to harm us, he had ample opportunity, Ahsoka reasoned. Besides, if his abilities are as powerful as they appear, a few more troopers wouldn't make a difference. She offered a reassuring smile. I'll be fine, Rex. Keep the village secure in case the separatists return. Rex saluted reluctantly. Yes, Commander. Calm if you need extraction. Ahsoka gestured for Naruto to follow her toward the mountain path. As they walked, Naruto attempted conversation, still processing the reality of being on another planet. So these separatists, They're using robots to fight their battles. Droids. Ahsoka corrected. Battle droids, specifically. The Separatist Alliance uses them as their main fighting force against the Republic. And you're fighting for this Republic? Naruto asked, easily keeping pace alongside her. The Jedi serve as peacekeepers, she explained, navigating the rocky trail. Or we did, before the war. Now we've become generals and commanders. Leading clone troopers like Rex against the Separatist threat. Clone troopers. Naruto's interest peaked. You mean they're all copies of the same person? Ahsoka nodded. Created on Kamino specifically to serve the Republic. They're good men. The best, despite what some people think about their origins. The concept wasn't entirely foreign to Naruto, considering his own shadow clone technique. But the ethics of an army of clones created solely for war troubled him. Before he could ask more, they reached a plateau where the trail widened. You still haven't explained what a Jedi actually is, Naruto pointed out. Ahsoka smiled slightly. The Jedi Order has existed for thousands of years. We're trained from childhood to use the Force for knowledge and defense. We follow the light side, peace, harmony, knowledge, as opposed to the dark side, passion, aggression, fear, she replied, her expression darkening. The Sith follow that path, using the Force for power and domination. Count Dooku, the Separatist leader, is a Sith Lord. The dichotomy reminded Naruto of the endless conflicts between shinobi nations, ideological differences weaponized into war. Where I come from, we learned that light and dark exist in everyone. The choice lies in which aspects we nurture and which we overcome. Ahsoka gave him a curious sideways glance. That's not the traditional Jedi view. We're taught that the dark side is corruption, a cancer on the Force itself. Seems limiting, Naruto commented. Some of my strongest techniques came from mastering the darker aspects of my own power and bringing them into balance. Quote, this earned him another intrigued look from Ahsoka, but further philosophical discussion was interrupted as they reached the temple entrance, a natural cave moat. Expanded and adorned with ancient carvings. The symbols resembled nothing from Naruto's world, yet something about them resonated with his sage abilities. These markings predate Republic contact, Ahsoka noted, tracing a symbol with her fingertips. They're similar to early Jedi iconography, but different. Older, perhaps. The cave entrance emitted a subtle glow that pulsed in rhythm like a heartbeat. As they approached, Naruto felt a strange resonance with his own chakra, similar to what he'd experienced at the dimensional rift. You feel it too? Ahsoka asked, noticing his reaction. Naruto nodded. It's like the cave is recognizing me, somehow. The Force is strong here, she confirmed, activating one of her energy blades, her lightsaber, she'd called it, to provide illumination as they entered. The white beam cast eerie shadows as they proceeded deeper into the mountain. The narrow entrance soon opened into a vast chamber that defied the mountain's external dimensions, a space that seemed impossibly large. Its ceiling lost in darkness above. Crystalline formations jutted from walls and floor, pulsing with inner light in various colors, primarily blue and green, with occasional yellow and purple clusters. At the chamber's center stood a formation resembling a tree, its crystalline branches reaching upward like supplicating hands. Beneath it, a circular pool of water reflected the crystal's light. Its surface unnaturally still despite their movement. Kyber crystals, Ahsoka breathed, her voice hushed with reverence. The lifeblood of a Jedi's lightsaber. I've never seen so many outside of Ilum. Quote, Naruto approached the crystal tree cautiously. As he drew nearer, the crystals, pulsing intensified, their light synchronizing until they glowed in unison. Is that normal? He asked nervously. Ahsoka shook her head slowly. No, they're responding to you, to your energy. Her hand hovered near her second lightsaber. What exactly are you? Just a shinobi, Naruto answered honestly. Though I am a Jinchuriki, the host of a tailed beast named Kurama. And I've mastered Sage Mode, which allows me to harness natural energy. The terms meant nothing to Ahsoka, but the principle seemed to register. A vessel for another being, and a user of natural energy, she translated. Both would create unusual Force signatures. She relaxed slightly, a pair. NTLY deciding he wasn't an immediate threat, and approached the pool beneath the crystal tree. This looks like a reflection pool, Jedi use similar pools for meditation and receiving visions from the Force. Naruto knelt beside the pool, studying its mirror-like surface. For an instant, he thought he glimpsed Konoha reflected rather than the cave ceiling, but the image vanished when he blinked. Look, Ahsoka pointed toward inscriptions ringing the pool's edge. These are in ancient Aurebesh, an old Jedi script. I can make out some words. She traced the symbols carefully. Convergence. Sage. Something about. Paths united. Quote. Sage. Naruto's attention sharpened. That's what I am. A toad sage from Mount Myoboku. These inscriptions refer to a convergent sage, Ahsoka continued. Brow furrowed in concentration as she deciphered more text. One who walks between worlds, binding the scattered paths into wholeness. She looked up at Naruto. It could be coincidence, but nothing about this feels like coincidence, Naruto finished for her. The rift that brought me here, this temple responding to me, these prophecies. Ahsoka nodded slowly. The Force works in mysterious ways. If you were brought here, there must be a reason. She stood, moving around the pool to examine more inscriptions. There's more here. References to the abyssal current and architects of the void. Her voice took on a troubled quality. That doesn't sound like traditional Jedi terminology. As Naruto joined her to examine the inscriptions, the crystal tree suddenly flared with blinding intensity. The pool's surface rippled violently despite no physical disturbance, and a deep resonance filled the chamber like the tolling of an immense bell. What's happening? Naruto shouted over the noise, instinctively dropping into a defensive stance. Before Ahsoka could respond, the pool erupted upward in a column of water that defied gravity, reaching toward the distant ceiling. Within the liquid column, images formed. Planets, stars, galaxies swirling in patterns incomprehensible to human minds. It's a Force vision, Ahsoka called out, her voice distant despite standing just meters away. Don't fight it. The column collapsed suddenly, but instead of splashing down, the water enveloped both Naruto and Ahsoka in a sphere of perfect suspension. Within this impossible bubble, reality seemed to fracture around them. Naruto saw himself wielding powers he didn't recognize, commanding light and darkness in equal measure, moving objects with his mind, creating lightning from his fingertips. He saw strange worlds and ancient temples, faces unfamiliar yet somehow important. A masked figure in black stood atop a mountain of crystal, hands raised to shatter reality itself. More disturbing were the fragmented images of his own world, Konoha in flames, dimensional rifts tearing across the 5 nations, Kurama's power being extracted by shadowy figures. As suddenly as it began, the vision ended. The water sphere collapsed, drenching them both as they fell to their knees beside the now calm pool. Gasping for breath, Naruto turned to Ahsoka. Did you see? Yes, she interrupted, eyes wide with shock. I saw your world, and mine, and others. Connected somehow. Threatened. She pushed herself to her feet, water dripping from her montrals, the horn-like projections atop her head. There were Jedi in the vision I didn't recognize. And beings using the Force in ways I've never seen. I saw myself using abilities I don't have, Naruto added, wringing water from his sleeve. Controlling objects without touching them, creating lightning. Those are Jedi techniques, Ahsoka explained. Telekinesis, Force lightning, though the latter is considered a dark side power. Their discussion was interrupted by a beeping sound from a device on Ahsoka's wrist. She activated it, projecting a small blue image of Rex. Commander, we've received an urgent transmission from General Skywalker. The projection reported, Separatist reinforcements are inbound to your position. They've deployed commando droids to the temple coordinates. How did they know? Ahsoka began, then shook her head. Doesn't matter. How long, Rex? Minutes at most. We're mobilizing to your position, but the terrain will slow us down. Understood. We'll handle it. Tano out. Shida activated the communicator and turned to Naruto. Commando droids are nothing like the battle droids you fought earlier. They're elite assassin models. Fast, agile, and lethal. Naruto cracked his knuckles, a determined grin spreading across his face. Fast and lethal, huh? Sounds like a fair fight, then. Ahsoka couldn't help returning a small smile despite the situation. There's something seriously wrong with you if you're actually looking forward to this. Where I'm from, life-threatening danger is just Tuesday, Naruto replied with a shrug. Besides, I need to test how my abilities work in this world. They moved toward the cave entrance, Ahsoka drawing both lightsabers while Naruto retrieved kunai from his pouch. The whine of approaching engines echoed through the mountain pass. One question before they get here, Naruto asked. Why would these separatists care about this temple? If they've discovered kyber crystals, they could be mining them for weapons, Ahsoka reasoned. But given the timing of your arrival and their attack, she left the implication hanging. They might know something about the rift that brought me here, Naruto concluded. We need prisoners, not corpses. Ahsoka nodded in agreement as the first separatist shuttle crested the ridge, deploying sleek, skeletal droids that moved with fluid, predatory grace. Unlike the tan battle droids from the village, these were midnight black with photoreceptors that glowed sinister red. Commando droids, Ahsoka confirmed, igniting both lightsabers. Remember, they're not like the others. They can think tactically. The first wave of commando droids advanced with incredible speed, vibros words and blasters deployed. They moved like coordinated predators, spreading out to flank the temple entrance. Target identified. Jedi, announced the lead droid in a deeper, more menacing voice than the battle droids. It focused on Naruto. Secondary target, unknown, classified as high threat. At least they're acknowledging my skills. Naruto quipped, forming a hand seal. Shadow clone jutsu. 5 clones appeared, immediately engaging the nearest commandos. The droids adapted quickly, analyzing He clones' movements and adjusting their combat patterns. One clone disappeared in a puff of smoke as a vibrosword found its mark. Ahsoka moved like liquid lightning, her lightsabers creating a defensive perimeter of white light that deflected blaster bolts back at their sources. She flipped over a commando droid, severing its arms before kicking it into 2 others. They're better than I expected, Naruto called out, blocking a vibrosword with his kunai before delivering a roundhouse kick that sent the droid flying into the mountainside. But still not good enough. Don't get cocky, Ahsoka warned, narrowly avoiding a precision shot. More incoming. A second shuttle descended, disgorging another squad of commando droids led by a taller, more heavily armored variant. This Commander C. Aried a staff crackling with energy that Naruto instinctively recognized as dangerous. New directive, the commander announced. Secure the temple and the anomaly. Anomaly. Ahsoka and Naruto exchanged glances. I think they mean me. Naruto realized. The commander droid pointed its staff directly at Naruto. Target designation. Convergence anomaly. Priority 1. Capture for analysis. They know something, Ahsoka said, deflecting another barrage of blaster fire. We need that droid functional enough to talk. Naruto nodded, formulating a plan. Can you keep the others busy? Ahsoka responded by leaping into the midst of the commando squad, lightsabers whirling in a defensive pattern so fast they appeared as solid discs of light. Does that answer your question? With Ahsoka occupying the rank-and-file droids, Naruto focused on the commander. The droid assessed him coldly, its staff humming with power. Energy signature analysis complete, it stated. Subject confirms theoretical models. The architects will be pleased. Who are the architects? Naruto demanded, circling the droid cautiously. The commander didn't respond, instead lunging forward with mechanical precision. Its staff swept toward Naruto's head with lethal intent. Naruto ducked under the swing, surprised by the droid's speed. He countered with a punch to its midsection, only for his fist to meet reinforced plating that barely dented. Heavy armor. Huh, Naruto grunted, shaking out his hand. Then let's try something different. He created a Rasengan, the spiraling chakra orb growing in his palm. The commander droid paused, its photoreceptors focusing on the technique with apparent interest. Energy manipulation without technology, it observed. Archiving combat data. Archive this. Naruto lunged forward, driving the Rasengan toward the droid's chest. The commander attempted to block with its staff, but the chakra sphere simply ground through the weapon, shattering it before impacting the droid's torso. The Rasengan tore through the reinforced plating, sending the commander sprawling backward with a gaping hole in its chassis. Sparks erupted from exposed circuitry, but to Naruto's surprise, the droid remained functional. Damage, critical, it announced, voice distorting. Initiating emergency protocol. Before Naruto could reach it, The droid's chest cavity began glowing with ominous energy. Recognizing a self-destruct sequence, Naruto shouted a warning to Ahsoka. "It's going to blow." Ahsoka disengaged from her opponents with a force-enhanced leap, landing beside Naruto. "We can't let it destroy itself." The information. Acting on instinct, Naruto channeled Wind Nature Chakra into his hand, forming a crude cutting edge. With precision born from years of training, he severed the droid's head from its body just as the chassis erupted in flames. The decapitated head rolled to a stop at their feet, photoreceptors flickering but still active. Self-destruct. Sequence, failed. The head announced, its voice degrading into electronic static. Memory core, compromised. Ahsoka knelt beside the head, eyes narrowed. "Who are the architects? What do you know about the anomaly?" The head emitted a mechanical laugh, disconcerting in its human-like quality. "The convergent sage arrives, as foretold. The abyssal current flows, between worlds. It knows about the prophecy." Naruto realized, crouching beside Ahsoka. "How? The architects? See beyond," the droid continued cryptically. "The rifts are merely beginning. When the nexus points align, reality will shatter." Quote. With a final electronic sputter, the photoreceptors went dark. Naruto picked up the head, examining it for any remaining functionality, but the droid had permanently deactivated. "Well, that was spectacularly unhelpful," he muttered, tossing the head aside. Ahsoka deactivated her lightsabers as the last commando droid fell. "Not entirely. It confirmed here's a connection between your arrival and something called the architects. And it recognized you as this convergent sage, mentioned in the temple inscriptions." The sound of approaching Republic gunships drew their attention skyward. As the vessels descended toward their position, Ahsoka turned to Naruto with newfound determination. "This is bigger than a random dimensional accident," she stated firmly. "Someone or something engineered your arrival here. The question is why." Naruto gazed back at the temple entrance, where the kyber crystals continued their rhythmic pulsing. "And how I get back home," he added quietly. "That too," Ahsoka agreed. "But first, we need answers. If the Separatists know something about your arrival, we need to find out what." She placed a hand on his shoulder, surprising both of them with the gesture. "I believe you're here for a reason, Naruto. The Force doesn't make mistakes." As the Republic gunships landed and clone troopers deployed to secure the area, Naruto contemplated the visions he'd experienced in the temple. Images of himself wielding abilities foreign to his understanding, worlds in peril, and shadowy figures manipulating events across realities. "Where I come from," he said finally, "we have a saying. When you face the impossible, make the impossible possible. Whatever's happening, whatever these architects are planning, I'll find a way to stop it." Ahsoka smiled at this, a genuine expression that softened her warrior's demeanor. "You sound like my master. He never believes in no-win scenarios either." She extended her hand formally. "I think this is the beginning of a very interesting partnership, Naruto Uzumaki." Naruto grasped her hand, feeling a strange resonance as their energies, chakra and force, briefly intermingled. "I've never been one to turn down interesting, Ahsoka Tano." As they boarded the Republic gunship, neither noticed the subtle ripple that passed through the fabric of reality around them. A barely perceptible thinning of the barriers between dimensions that spread outward like ripples in a cosmic pond. In the temple behind them, the kyber crystals flared once more before returning to dormancy, their message delivered. Their purpose fulfilled. For now. Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, Echoes of the Ancient Past. Coruscant glittered like a jewel wrought from durasteel and light. Naruto stood at the expansive viewport of the Jedi Temple's upper level, mesmerized by the endless cityscape stretching to the horizon. Speeders wove between towering spires in organized chaos, their runnin' G-lights forming rivers of illumination against the darkening sky. "It's a lot to take in, isn't it?" Ahsoka appeared beside him, her reflection joining his in the transparasteel. "My entire village could fit inside one of these buildings," Naruto murmured, pressing his palm against the cool viewport. "And you say this entire planet is just city, all the way down to the core, with thousands of levels?" Ahsoka leaned against the window frame. "Most people never see actual sunlight." 3 standard weeks had passed since Naruto's arrival on Felucia. 3 weeks of debriefings, cautious interrogations, and tense council meetings where Jedi Masters debated his presence as though he were simultaneously a fascinating specimen and a potential threat. Only Ahsoka's steadfast advocacy had prevented his indefinite detainment for further study. The council's decision seems inconclusive, Naruto observed, turning from the viewport. Ahsoka sighed. That's diplomatic phrasing. Half of them think you're a separatist experiment, a quarter believe you're some kind of force anomaly to be studied, and the rest are too occupied with the war to form an opinion. She offered a small smile. Master Skywalker is in the last group, which is why he's letting me take you on this mission. Naruto had yet to meet Ahsoka's legendary master. Anakin Skywalker had been deployed to the Outer Rim sieges immediately after their return from Felucia, leaving Ahsoka temporarily reassigned to temple duty, and unofficial babysitter for their interdimensional visitor. And the mission is, Naruto prompted. Intelligence identified unusual energy readings on Dantooine matching patterns from the Felucia temple. Since you're the only person who's interacted directly with similar energy, Master Yoda convinced the council to let us investigate. Unusual energy readings could mean another rift, Naruto mused, hope coloring his voice. A way home. Ahsoka's expression softened with sympathy. Maybe. Or it could be another piece of the puzzle about why you're here in the first place. Their conversation was interrupted by the approach of a protocol droid, its metallic footsteps echoing on the temple's marble floor. Commander Tano, it addressed Ahsoka in a prim voice, your transport is prepared. Master Kenobi requests your presence in Hangar Bay 3. Thank you, 3PO, Ahsoka replied before turning back to Naruto. That's our cue. You've got everything. Naruto patted the equipment pouch at his hip, now containing a comlink and other basic technology Ahsoka had deemed essential for his functioning in this strange galaxy. His other gear remained unchanged. The Jedi had permitted him to keep his weapons and gear after determining they posed no unusual threat. LL feels weird heading on a mission without checking in with the Hokage, Naruto admitted as they walked toward the hangar. Or at least filing a mission scroll. The bureaucracy here would make your head spin, Ahsoka replied. Forms in triplicate just to requisition a new lightsaber crystal. The easy banter continued as they traversed the temple's grand corridors. Over the past weeks, Naruto had grown more comfortable in Ahsoka's presence. Despite their radically different backgrounds, they shared a similar approach to life, pragmatic optimism tempered by hard-earned battle experience. Upon reaching the hangar, they found a bearded human Jedi inspecting a sleek vessel that Naruto now recognized as a Republic shuttle. Master Obi-Wan Kenobi straightened as they approached, stroking his auburn beard thoughtfully. Ah, Ahsoka, he greeted warmly before turning his appraising gaze to Naruto. And our interdimensional visitor, I trust you've been treating our temple's hospitality with respect. Yes, sir, Naruto replied, recognizing authority when he saw it. Though your cafeteria food could use some ramen. A flicker of amusement crossed Kenobi's face. I'll be sure to forward that suggestion to the temple quartermaster. His expression grew more serious. I understand you'll be accompanying Ahsoka to Dantooine. Master Yoda believes you may provide insights we cannot. That's the hope, Naruto agreed. Though honestly, I know as little about what's happening as you do. Kenobi nodded pensively. Sometimes fresh eyes see what familiar ones miss. The Force works in mysterious ways. The Jedi Master briefed them efficiently on the mission parameters, energy anomalies detected near ancient ruins on Dantooine's northern continent, possible separatist involvement, and strict orders to observe and report rather than engage directly. The Council remains cautious regarding your status, Kenobi concluded, addressing Naruto directly. This mission is as much a test of trust as it is an investigation. I understand, Naruto replied seriously. Where I'm from, we don't immediately trust outsiders either. Especially ones who appear out of nowhere with unusual abilities. Kenobi seemed satisfied with this answer. May the Force be with you both, he offered as a parting blessing, the formal phrase carrying genuine sentiment. Once aboard the shuttle, Ahsoka took the pilot's seat with practiced ease. Naruto settled into the co-pilot position, watching intently as she initiated the launch sequence. You pick up anything mechanical pretty quickly, don't you? Ahsoka observed as he studied the control panel. Naruto shrugged. Shadow clones are good for more than just fighting. I had a few exploring the temple archives while I was stuck in those council meetings. Sneaky, she commented with approval rather than censure. Reminds me of something my master would do. The shuttle lifted smoothly, rising through the hangar's atmospheric shield and into Coruscant's busy skylanes. Soon they were ascending through the atmosphere, the planet's glow diminishing behind them as stars filled the viewport. So what exactly are we looking for on Dantooine? Naruto asked once they'd made the jump to hyperspace, the stars stretching into the now familiar blue streaks. Ahsoka activated a holographic display showing topographical maps of rolling plains interspersed with scattered ruins. Ancient Jedi Enclave ruins, she explained, highlighting one particular structure. Abandoned centuries ago after a Sith attack, but the area has always been strong with the Force. The energy readings are centered here. She indicated a circular formation near the ruins, where archaeological records mention a meditation circle with unusual properties. Define unusual, Naruto prompted. According to surviving texts, Jedi who meditated there sometimes reported visions of the distant past or future. Some claimed to have conversations with long-dead masters. Ahsoka's tone remained neutral, but Naruto detected underlying skepticism. You don't believe those accounts? Ahsoka sighed. The Force can certainly grant visions. But actual communication across time, that contradicts everything we're taught about becoming one with the Force after death. Maybe they weren't actually talking to the dead, Naruto suggested. Maybe they were experiencing something similar to what brought me here, connections across dimensions or time. This earned him a thoughtful look. That's not a perspective I'd considered. Their conversation continued throughout the journey, exploring parallels between Force techniques and chakra applications. Naruto described his world's history and shinobi system while Ahsoka explained the Republic's structure and the Jedi Order's role within it. By the time they reverted to real space above Dantooine, Naruto had a clearer picture of the galactic conflict he'd been thrust into. Pretty planet, he commented as they descended through wisps of cloud toward an endless expanse of golden grasslands. Reminds me of the plains outside Kumo. Dantooine's one of the more peaceful Outer Rim worlds, Ahsoka explained. Minimal strategic value, sparse population. The Separatists largely ignore it. Then why would they be interested in these ruins? That's what we're here to find out. The shuttle settled on a landing pad adjacent to a modest spaceport, little more than a collection of low stone buildings with a handful of agricultural vessels. A grizzled port official processed their arrival with bored efficiency, barely glancing at the credentials Ahsoka presented. Not many visitors these days, he grunted. Especially not Jedi. You hear about them researchers. Ahsoka's posture sharpened. Researchers. Arrived about a month back. Academic types, they said. Got permission to study the old Jedi ruins. He scratched his stubbled chin. Strange lot. Keep to themselves. Did they have Republic authorization? Ahsoka pressed. The official shrugged. Papers looked official enough. Didn't seem worth bothering the Republic about, what with the war and all. After extracting what little additional information the official possessed, they requisitioned speeder bikes from the Port Authority and set out across the plains. Tall grasses rippled like ocean waves in the afternoon breeze, occasional. Why giving way to outcroppings of weathered stone? I'm getting a bad feeling about these researchers, Ahsoka muttered as they approached the coordinates of the ancient enclave. You think they're separatists, or worse? She guided her speeder around a particularly large boulder. The timing is too convenient. First Felucia's temple activates when you arrive, then unknown researchers appear at another Force-strong site. The ruins emerged from the rolling landscape like the skeleton of a once magnificent beast. Crumbling stone walls formed a rough circular pattern around a central courtyard, where a few structures remained partially intact. Age and warfare had reduced most of the enclave to rubble, yet the site retained a palpable atmosphere of reverence. They concealed their speed, in a nearby copse of twisted trees and approached the ruins on foot. Naruto immediately noticed the difference in the environment. The air felt thicker somehow, charged with potential, similar to how natural energy felt when entering Sage mode. You sense it, Ahsoka whispered, her montrals twitching subtly, a reaction Naruto had come to recognize as her sensing changes in the Force. Yeah, the whole place is saturated with energy. Different from Felucia, though. Older, more settled. They moved silently through the ruins, years of stealth training evident in both their movements. Signs of recent activity appeared as they neared the center, equipment cases bearing unfamiliar markings, portable lighting units, and freshly cleared pathways through the debris. In what once might have been a grand hall, they discovered a makeshift research camp. Scanning devices surrounded a circular depression in the stone floor, presumably the meditation circle mentioned in the archives. The equipment hummed with active power, collecting data from sensors embedded in the ancient stonework. No personnel present, Ahsoka observed, examining the nearest console. But this equipment is high-end, not standard academic issue. Naruto crouched beside a storage container, examining symbols etched into its surface. These markings look similar to the ones from the Felucia temple. Before Ahsoka could respond, a low rumble emanated from the meditation circle. The depression in the center began to glow with a pale blue light that pulsed in hypnotic rhythm. "That's definitely not normal," Naruto muttered. Instinctively backing away, Ahsoka activated her comlink, recording the phenomenon. Energy signatures increasing exponentially. This matches the pattern from Felucia just before. A.B. Blaster bolt sizzled through the air where her head had been a moment earlier. Only Jedi reflexes saved her as she ducked and rolled, lightsabers igniting in a fluid motion. Intruders detected. Anno. Unsta synthesized voice as battle droids emerged from concealed positions around the ruins. Unlike the models Naruto had encountered on Felucia, these bore no separatist markings, instead displaying the same arcane symbols as the equipment. "So much for observation only," Naruto called, creating shadow clones that immediately engaged the nearest droids. Ahsoka deflected a barrage of blaster fire, her twin lightsabers creating a defensive perimeter as she advanced toward the attackers. These aren't separatist droids. Different design entirely. The battle escalated quickly as more droids converged on their position. Unlike the relatively simplistic battle droids Naruto had faced previously, these moved with unsettling precision, coordinating their attacks and adapting to the defenders' techniques. As the fight intensified, the meditation circle's glow strengthened, tendrils of energy reaching upward like grasping fingers. Naruto noticed with alarm that the energy seemed attracted to areas of conflict, growing brighter where blaster fire and lightsabers clashed. "Ahsoka," he shouted over the din of battle. "The circle is feeding on the combat energy." She dispatched 2 more droids before glancing toward the phenomenon. "Some kind of resonance effect. We need to." Her warning was cut short as a new figure entered the fray. Tall and gaunt, clad in elaborate robes embroidered with the same symbols as the droids. The newcomer raised skeletal hands wreathed in crackling energy. The convergence progresses, the figure intoned, voice neither fully machine nor organic. "The architects foresaw your arrival." Anomaly. Naruto felt the same disturbing resonance he'd experienced at the Felucia Rift. "Who are you?" he demanded, preparing a Rasengan. "What do you want?" The figure's face remained obscured beneath a deep hood. "We are but acolytes of the pattern. The architects weave across time and space." A gesture sent arcs of energy toward the meditation circle. "You will fulfill your role." Convergent 1. Before either Naruto or Ahsoka could respond, the circle erupted with blinding light. Reality seemed to fold inward, the stone floor rippling like disturbed water. Naruto felt himself being pulled toward the vortex of energy while simultaneously being pushed away, an impossible sensation that defied physical laws. "Naruto." Ahsoka's voice sounded distant despite her being only meters away. She fought against the spatial distortion, lightsabers carving through droids that blocked her path. The hooded figure made no attempt to escape, instead raising both arms as if embracing the chaos. The confluence strengthens. Nexus points align. Naruto struggled to maintain his position, chakra focusing at his feet in a desperate attempt to anchor himself. The technique that had served him countless times on battlefields failed as reality itself became fluid beneath him. "Ahsoka." "The console," he shouted, pointing toward the equipment still actively interfacing with the meditation circle. "Destroy it." Understanding instantly, Ahsoka changed targets, her lightsabers slashing through the nearest control panel. Sparks erupted and alarms blared, but the vortex only intensified. "Too late," the figure crooned. The pathway opens. The convergent travels again. The last thing Naruto saw was Ahsoka leaping toward him, hand outstretched. There Finn. Gers were centimeters apart when the vortex collapsed inward, taking Naruto with it. Darkness. Pressure. The sensation of being simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Then impact. Hard stone against his back. The breath driven from his lungs. Naruto gasped, eyes flying open to a sky that was both familiar and wrong. Dantooin's blue expanse, but with subtle differences in the cloud patterns and sun position. Groaning, he sat up to find himself still in the ruins of the Jedi Enclave. But the differences were immediately apparent. Sections that had been crumbled debris were now partially intact. The research equipment had vanished, as had all signs of the recent battle. Most tellingly, the meditation circle where he'd been standing now featured intact stonework with freshly carved symbols around its perimeter. "When am I?" Naruto muttered, a sinking feeling in his stomach. "That's an unusual question," replied a crisp female voice behind him. Naruto whirled to find himself facing the business end of a yellow lightsaber. The woman holding it regarded him with intense suspicion, her dark hair pulled back in a practical style, features sharp and evaluative. She wore armor over traditional Jedi robes, battle-worn but well-maintained. More relevant questions might be, who are you, how did you appear in a secure archaeological site, and why your force signature registers unlike anything I've encountered. Her accent differed from Ahsoka's, more formal, with consonants precisely enunciated. Naruto slowly raised his hands in a non-threatening gesture. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki. As for how I got here, you might want to sit down for that explanation." The woman didn't lower her lightsaber. "I prefer standing, particularly when confronting unknown intruders with impossible force signatures." "Fair enough," Naruto conceded. Short version, I'm from another dimension entirely. Got pulled through a rift into your galaxy, ended up working with a Jedi named Ahsoka Tano, N.D. was investigating energy anomalies on Dantooin when some robed figure triggered the meditation circle and sent me here, I guess. The woman's expression remained skeptical, but something in his explanation caused her to tilt her head slightly. Ahsoka Tano. That name isn't in the Jedi archives. A chill ran down Naruto's spine. What year is it? That's your pressing concern. When he merely waited expectantly, she sighed. It's 3956 BBY by Republic Standard Calendar. The date meant nothing to Naruto, but her reaction to Ahsoka's name confirmed his suspicion. "And you are Bastila Shan, Jedi Knight and leader of this expedition." She finally lowered her lightsaber, though she didn't deactivate it. "You truly don't recognize my name, do you?" "Should I?" A complex emotio flickered across her face, relief mingled with something like disappointment. "No, I suppose not. My battle meditation ability has made me somewhat known." Naruto's mind raced, trying to assimilate this new development. He'd been thrust not just across space but time as well. If Ahsoka was in what she'd called the Clone Wars era, and this woman didn't recognize her name. "I think I've traveled through time," he stated bluntly. "In the period I was just in, these ruins were ancient and abandoned. Here, they're being actively excavated." Bastila's skepticism remained evident, but she was clearly intrigued despite herself. Time travel is theoretically impossible, even through the Force. So is interdimensional travel, apparently, but here I am. Naruto gestured to himself. "Look, I know how this sounds. Where I'm from, we'd think the same thing. But I can prove at least part of my story." "How?" "Those symbols around the meditation circle, they're connected to something called the architects, or the pattern. Does that mean anything to you?" Bastila stiffened, her grip on her lightsaber tightening. "How do you know those terms?" "Because in my timeline, I guess. They're somehow responsible for the dimensional rifts. A figure wearing robes with these same symbols was tampering with the circle right before I got sent here." She studied him intently, and Naruto had the distinct impression she was probing his intentions through the Force. Unlike his defensive reaction with Ahsoka, he allowed this scrutiny, understanding her caution. After a moment, Bastila deactivated her lightsaber though she kept it in hand. "Your sincerity is either genuine or you're the most accomplished deceiver I've encountered." She gestured toward a makeshift camp at the enclave's edge. "Come with me. If even half of what you're claiming is true, the rest of my team needs to hear it." The expedition camp proved to be a small but efficient operation. 3 Republic soldiers maintained a perimeter while 2 more Jedi, a male Twi'lek and a female human, examined artifacts recovered from the ruins. All regarded Naruto with open curiosity as Bastila led him to a central table covered with maps and data pads. "This is Naruto Uzumaki," she introduced him curtly. "He claims to be from another dimension and potentially the future. More importantly, he has information about the architects." This announcement generated immediate interest. The Twi'lek Jedi approached, green head tails twitching with barely contained excitement. The architects, the same referenced in the Dantoin Codex fragments. He extended a hand to Naruto. "Kale Burkona, I've been studying those references for years." Most dismissed them as metaphorical. Naruto shook the offered hand, noting the scholar's enthusiasm contrasting with Bastila's reserve. "I don't know much about them, honestly. Just that they're manipulating events across time, creating rifts between dimensions, and apparently have some interest in me specifically." Quote, "Fascinating," Kale breathed. "The Codex describes them as shapers of the cosmic loom, who weave between stars and epochs." Most interpreted it as poetic exaggeration. Bastila remained practical. "Before we indulge in theoretical discussions, we should verify his claims. Archivist Montara is cataloging the meditation circle inscriptions. Perhaps our visitor could demonstrate his unique abilities." Naruto recognized the test but complied willingly. "What would you like to see?" "Shadow clones, Rasengan, Sage mode. Those terms mean nothing to me," Bastila replied. "Show us something distinctly not force-based." Naruto formed his cross-shaped hand seal, channeling chakra. "Shadow clone jutsu." A dozen perfect duplicates appeared in puffs of smoke, surrounding the startled expedition members. Each clone bore Naruto's distinctive features and clothing, all solid and independent. "Force illusions can't interact physically," Kale whispered, reaching out to touch the nearest clone. His hand met solid resistance as the clone grinned and offered a fist bump. "Not illusions," Bastila confirmed, her composed exterior cracking slightly to reveal genuine amazement. "And that energy, it's similar to the Force but fundamentally different in structure. We call it chakra," Naruto explained as he dispelled the clones. "Everyone has it where I come from. Though shinobi trained to use it effectively." The demonstration continued with basic ninjutsu, each technique generating increasing interest from the assembled Jedi. When Naruto demonstrated Rasengan, Bastila's analytical mind immediately grasped its principles. "Contained rotational energy without a lightsaber's plasma containment field," she observed. "The applications would be considerable." By the time Naruto explained Six Paths Sage mode, without demonstrating it, given the chakra expenditure, even the skeptical Republic soldiers were engaged in the discussion. This confirms certain theories about the Force existing differently in other realms, Kale enthused. "The ancient texts mention paths divergent yet parallel, that could theoretically." Bastila interrupted his academic excitement. "Fascinating as this is, we're overlooking the immediate concern. If the architects sent you here specifically, why this time period? What connection exists between your appearance in the future and these ruins now?" Quote, Naruto considered this practical question. "In my time, you'd discovered evidence they'd been manipulating events throughout history. Maybe this is one of those events. Something happening now that's crucial to their plans." "The excavation," the female Jedi suggested, speaking for the first time. "We uncovered a sealed chamber beneath the meditation circle yesterday. The inscriptions match those referenced in Nomi Sunrider's journals regarding the pattern." Bastila's expression darkened, which is precisely when the Sith started showing unusual interest in our work. "The attack yesterday was no coincidence." "Sith?" Naruto questioned. "Ahsoka mentioned them. Dark side Force users, right? An oversimplification, but essentially correct," Bastila replied. "The Sith Empire is currently engaged in conflict with the Republic, what history will call the Jedi Civil War, though there's nothing civil about it. The parallels to the Clone Wars weren't lost on Naruto. Different eras, same fundamental conflicts, and they attacked this site specifically. A targeted strike force," confirmed one of the Republic soldiers. "Professional, surgical, EY weren't trying to kill us, they wanted access to the chamber. Which makes your sudden appearance more concerning," Bastila concluded. "If the architects are manipulating both time periods and the Sith are involved." An alarm from the perimeter interrupted her speculation. One of the soldiers activated a portable scanner, his expression grim. Multiple contacts approaching from the east. Ignatures match yesterday's attack force. Bastila immediately shifted to command mode, issuing crisp orders to secure essential artifacts and prepare defensive positions. Naruto found himself impressed, said by her efficient leadership, quite different from Ahsoka's more adaptive style, but equally effective. "Can you fight?" she asked him directly. Naruto cracked his knuckles, a determined grin spreading across his face. "Fighting's what I do best." "Then I suggest you prepare your chakra." She pronounced the unfamiliar word carefully. "If you truly were sent here for a reason, we're about to discover it." The Sith attack force crested the eastern ridge 20 minutes later, a disciplined squad of black armored troops led by two figures in dark robes. Even at a distance, Naruto could sense the malevolent energy emanating from the leaders. Dark side users, Kale confirmed from their position behind a partially collapsed wall. Apprentices, most likely, not full Sith lords. "That's supposed to be reassuring," Naruto muttered, preparing his equipment. Bastila unclipped her lightsaber, the weapon's familiar weight centering her focus. "Consider it tactical information. Apprentices are dangerous but predictable. They rely on aggressive techniques rather than subtlety." The Republic soldiers had established a perimeter around the meditation circle, portable shield generators creating a defensive barrier. The Sith forces advanced methodically, their leaders reaching out with the force to probe the defenders' positions. "They're searching for something specific," Bastila observed. "Their focus keeps returning to the sealed chamber." Naruto created several shadow clones, sending them to flank the approaching force. "Let's find out what they want, then." The battle pted with simultaneous precision and chaos. Sith troopers engaged the Republic defenders in disciplined volleys while the Dark Apprentices launched force attacks against the Jedi. Bastila countered with remarkable skill, her yellow lightsaber creating patterns of light as she deflected both energy attacks and physical strikes. Naruto's clones struck the Sith formation from behind, creating momentary confusion that the defenders exploited. He noted with interest how Bastila fought. Economical movements, precise strikes, no wasted energy. Where Ahsoka had been acrobatic and fluid, Bastila was methodical and devastatingly efficient. One of the Sith apprentices broke through the defensive line, charging toward the meditation circle with inhuman speed. Naruto intercepted, Rasengan forming in his palm. "I don't think so," he shouted, driving the spiraling chakra sphere toward the black-robed figure. The Sith raised a hand, dark energy coalescing into a barrier. The techniques collided with a thunderous concussion that sent both combatants sliding backward. Naruto recovered first, pressing the advantage with taijutsu strikes that forced the surprised Darksider to defend physically rather than with the force. "Your technique," the Sith hissed through a respirator mask, voice distorted but distinctly female. "It resembles nothing in our archives." "That's because I'm not from your archives," Naruto retorted, landing a solid kick that cracked the Sith's mask. The apprentice staggered, then rallied with renewed fury. Red lightning erupted from her fingertips, striking Naruto squarely in the chest. Pain unlike anything he'd experienced lanced through his body, not just physical agony but a spiritual assault that seemed to target his very life force. Gritting his teeth, Naruto channeled chakra throughout his network, creating a buffer against the dark side attack. The technique wasn't perfect, but it allowed him to remain standing when the lightning ceased. "Interesting," the Sith observed coldly. "Most would be unconscious, if not dead." Naruto formed another hand seal. "I'm not most people." Shadow clone jutsu. The battle intensified as both sides committed fully to the engagement. Bastila systematically dismantled the second apprentice's defenses while Republic soldiers held the line against Sith troopers. Kale and the female Jedi protected the artifacts, repelling any enemies who breached the perimeter. Throughout the conflict, Naruto noticed the meditation circle beginning to react, subtle pulses of energy that intensified with each clash of force powers or chakra techniques. The phenomenon reminded him uncomfortably of what had happened before his temporal displacement. "Bastila," he called out after dispatching another Sith trooper. "The circle is activating again." She glanced toward the stone formation, momentary concern flashing across her face before she returned to her duel. "The energy patterns are different. More controlled." The Male Sith apprentice noticed their exchange, her focus shifting to the meditation circle. The confluence manifests. The master was correct. She abruptly disengaged from Naruto, darting toward the circle with preternatural speed. As she reached its perimeter, she withdrew a crystalline object from within her robes, a pyramidal device that pulsed with malevolent energy. A Sith holocron, Bastila gasped, attempting to disengage from her own opponent to intervene. The apprentice placed the holocron at the circle's center, where it began to resonate with the surrounding stonework. Arcane Symbo. LS carved into the floor illuminated with crimson light that spread outward in geometric patterns. The architects provide. The Sith proclaimed triumphantly. The pattern reveals itself. Naruto reached her a moment before Bastila, tackling the dark sider away from the holocron. They grappled briefly before a pulse of force energy from the Sith sent him sprawling. Bastila engaged immediately, her lightsaber a blur of yellow light against the apprentice's red blade. The holocron continued its activation sequence, the crimson light now forming a vertical column above the meditation circle. Within this column, shadowy figures materialized, indistinct but unmistakably watching the proceedings with cold calculation. The architects, Naruto realized, pushing himself upright. They're observing through that device. The female Sith broke away from Bastila, blood trickling from beneath her cracked mask as she laughed with manic intensity. Not observing. Directing. The convergence point stabilizes. Naruto felt an uncomfortable resonance between his chakra and the energies emanating from the holocron. Whatever connection had brought him to this time period was strengthening, pulling at his very essence. He struggled against the sensation, channeling chakra to anchor himself. Bastila sensed the danger immediately. The holocron is creating a nexus point. If it fully activates, she didn't finish the warning. Instead, she closed her eyes briefly, centering herself before extending both hands toward the meditation circle. The air around her shimmered as she accessed her legend. Airy battle meditation. But rather than directing it toward the combatants, she focused the technique on the energies swirling around the holocron. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Where the Sith device had been generating chaotic, destructive resonances, Bastila's technique imposed harmony and balance. The crimson light faltered, rippling with interference patterns as two powerful force techniques contested for dominance. Impossible, the Sith apprentice snarled. No single Jedi could counter a nexus alignment. Naruto recognized Bastila's struggle, sweat beaded on her forehead as she maintained the countermeasure against the holocron's power. Despite her remarkable ability, she was fighting a losing battle against the ancient device. Acting on instinct, Naruto moved to her side, adopting a complementary meditation stance. Let me help. Our energies worked together at the Felucia Temple. Bastila spared him a glance, skepticism warring with desperation. This isn't the Force as you understand it. Battle meditation requires years of training too. I'm a sage, Naruto interrupted. Connecting to natural energy is what I do. Without waiting for permission, he entered sage mode. Golden pigmentation forming around his eyes as he opened himself to the energy currents flowing through the ruins. The sensation was different from gathering natural energy on his homeworld, more structured. As if the Force itself had conscious patterns rather than the wild, primal nature of chakra. Bastila gasped as she sensed the transformation. Your signature, it's amplifying exponentially. Naruto extended his awareness toward her battle meditation, not attempting to control or direct it but simply offering his gathered energy as reinforcement. For a breathless moment, nothing happened, their techniques remained separate. Oil and water refusing to mix. Then something shifted. Where their energies touched, a new pattern formed, neither purely force nor purely chakra, but a harmonic synthesis of both. Bastila's eyes widened in astonishment as her battle meditation suddenly expanded beyond her previous limitations, drawing strength from Naruto's sage chakra. The crimson column surrounding the holocron flickered, then collapsed inward as the combined technique overwhelmed its resonance pattern. The shadowy observers vanished with a discordant shriek that echoed more in the mind than in physical space. The female Sith howled in frustrated rage, abandoning all pretense of discipline as she charged Bastila with lightsaber raised for a killing blow. Without breaking the meditation link, Bastila deflected the strike one-handed, her movements guided by the enhanced awareness their combined technique provided. Throughout the ruins, the battle's momentum shifted decisively. Republic soldiers found their coordination and accuracy dramatically improved, while Sith troopers suddenly struggled with confusion and doubt. The remaining Dark Apprentice faltered mid-attack, leaving himself vulnerable to Kale's precise counterattack. "This isn't possible," the female Sith gasped, backing away from Bastila's methodical advance. "No battle meditation could affect Darksiders so completely. Perhaps you should reconsider your understanding of possible," Bastila replied calmly, her lightsaber describing precise arcs that systematically dismantled her opponent's defense. With their leaders faltering and coordination shattered, the Sith forces began a disorganized retreat. Several troopers fell to Republic fire before the survivors crested the eastern ridge, disappearing toward their hidden transport. As the immediate threat receded, Naruto carefully disengaged from the meditation link, allowing his sage mode to dissipate. Bastila likewise ended her battle meditation. Though the aftereffects lingered, a heightened clarity shared between them that transcended normal awareness. "That was," Bastila began, then paused, searching for appropriate words. "Unprecedented. Battle meditation normally allows me to coordinate allies and confuse enemies, but this was an order of magnitude more effective." Naruto nodded, feeling the lingering resonance between them. It was like our energies amplified each other. Chakra and force working in harmony rather than just parallel. The Republic soldiers secured the perimeter while Kale approached the deactivated holocron cautiously. "It's dormant now, but still intact. The containment patterns are unlike anything in our records. Preserve it for study," Bastila instructed, "but establish triple containment protocols. Whatever connection it created with these architects may not be permanently severed." The immediate crisis resolved, the expedition regrouped to assess their situation. Casualties had been minimal. 2 soldiers with moderate injuries and Kale nursing a lightsaber burn along his left leku. More concerning was the sealed chamber beneath the meditation circle, which now displayed signs of imminent structural failure. The energy discharge weakened the ancient supports, the female Jedi reported after a preliminary inspection. "We have perhaps hours before collapse." Bastila made an executive decision. "Then we expedite the excavation. Whatever the chamber contains, it's clearly significant enough that both the architects and the Sith are willing to expend considerable resources to access it." As the team prepared excavation equipment, Bastila drew Naruto aside. Their shared meditation experience had created an unusual connection, not quite a force bond in the traditional sense, but something analogous that allowed a deeper understanding between them. "You said you were investigating similar phenomena in the future," she began without preamble. "What exactly were you hoping to discover?" Naruto leaned against a fallen column, organizing his thoughts. "A way home, primarily. But also answers about why I was brought to your galaxy in the first place. The architects seem to have some plan involving me, something about being a convergent one, or convergent sage." Bastila's expression grew troubled. "Those terms appear in the fragments we've translated. References to a figure who walks between worlds and binds divided paths. That could describe a lot of people," Naruto pointed out. "Why me specifically?" "Perhaps because of what just happened when our abilities combined," Bastila suggested. "Your energy, chakra, you called it, resonates with the Force in ways I've never encountered. It doesn't simply coexist, it harmonizes, creating effects greater than either alone could produce." This observation aligned with Naruto's experience. Throughout his life, his most significant achievements had come through cooperation and combined efforts, from Team F. Formations to his partnership with Kurama. The ability to bring disparate energies into harmony was fundamental to his nature. "If the architects are manipulating events across time," Bastila continued, "sending you to specific nexus points may serve their larger design. The question becomes, are you furthering their plans by responding as you have, or disrupting them?" It was a troubling question without a clear answer. Before they could explore it further, Kale called urgently from the meditation circle. "We've breached the chamber. You need to see this immediately." The excavation had revealed a narrow staircase descending beneath the meditation circle. Ancient glow panels activated as they approached, illuminating a path that spiraled downward into darkness. The architecture shifted subtly with each level, beginning with recognizable Jedi construction but gradually incorporating elements that predated the Order itself. At the bottom, they discovered a perfectly circular chamber. whose walls were inscribed with mathematical equations and star charts of astonishing complexity. Dominating the center was a three-dimensional model of the galaxy rendered in some unknown material. It seemed to shift between solid and energy with each pulse of the room's lighting. "This is impossible," Kale whispered, examining the nearest wall section. "These equations describe astronomical movements with precision our current science can't achieve. And these star positions," he gestured toward a particular constellation. "This arrangement won't occur for thousands of years." Bastila approached the galaxy model cautiously. "This isn't a map of the galaxy as it is now. It's showing configurations across time." Naruto noticed something else: specific points illuminated across the galactic representation, connected by lines of energy that formed a complex web. These highlighted locations, are they important somehow? "Nexus points," Bastila confirmed, recognition dawning. "Places strong in the Force. Ilum, Tython, Korriban, Osis." Her finger traced the connections. "The pattern isn't random, it's a sequence." "A sequence of what?" Naruto asked, though he suspected the answer. "Confluences," came Kale's subdued response as he joined them at the model. "According to these notations, each point experiences a moment of dimensional thinning, in a specific sequence spanning thousands of years." The implications were staggering. This chamber contained information documenting, or perhaps orchestrating, Force events across millennia of galactic history. Events that, according to the timeline, connected directly to Naruto's appearance thousands of years in the future. "They've been planning this for centuries," Bastila realized, awe and horror mingling in her voice. "Creating conditions for whatever the final convergence represents." Naruto studied the model more carefully, focusing on a particular illuminated point near the outer rim. "This one is pulsing differently from the others." Kale consulted the surrounding equations. "That's Dantoin, this location, specifically. According to these calculations, it's an active confluence point right now." As if responding to their discussion, the chamber's lighting intensified. The galaxy model began rotating slowly, its highlighted points leaving trails of energy that formed increasingly complex patterns with each revolution. "It's some kind of calculation engine," Bastila observed, watching the patterns evolve. "Processing data across temporal frameworks." A particular symbol on the wall caught Naruto's attention, one he recognized from the Felucia temple. That marking was in the prophecy about the convergent sage. Before he could examine it further, the entire chamber shuddered. Dust and SMALL stone fragments rained from the ceiling as structural supports groaned in protest. "The chamber's destabilizing," Kale warned, already moving toward the staircase. "We need to evacuate immediately." The galaxy model's rotation accelerated, energy patterns coalescing around the Dantoin marker with increasing intensity. Naruto felt a familiar pulling sensation, the same dimensional resonance he'd experienced during his previous transition. "Bastila," he called urgently, "I think I'm being pulled back." She reached him in 3 rapid strides, grasping his forearm firmly. "Focus on your anchor points. The meditation technique we shared created a harmonic resonance between us. Use it." Naruto concentrated on the connection they'd established, finding the unique frequency where their energies had synchronized. The pulling sensation remained, but stabilized rather than intensifying. "It's working," he confirmed, relieved. "But I don't know for how long." Bastila's analytical mind worked rapidly, processing implications. "If the architects are manipulating events across time, your presence in different eras must serve their design. But our combined technique disrupted the Holocaust's connection. It wasn't part of their calculation." The chamber shuddered again, more violently this time. The staircase began collapsing behind them, cutting off their escape route. "We need alternatives, fast," Naruto noted, eyeing the deteriorating ceiling. Bastila pointed toward a previously unnoticed alcove partially hidden behind hanging crystals. "Emergency evacuation shaft." Ancient D enclaves always included multiple exits. As they moved toward the potential escape route, the galaxy model's rotation reached fever pitch. Energy arced between nexus points, creating a web-like a turn that briefly formed a recognizable symbol, the same marking Naruto had identified from the Felucia prophecy. "That's it," he exclaimed. "That's the symbol for convergence." The moment he spoke, the model imploded with a silent flash. Energy cascaded outward, flooding the chamber with temporal distortion. Naruto felt the dimensional pull intensify beyond his ability to resist. Bastila. He shouted over the soundless roar of collapsing reality. I can't hold. She grasped both his hands, her expression resolute. Then don't fight it, but take this knowledge back with you. She pressed a data crystal into his palm, closing his fingers around it. The Nexus sequence. If the architects are manipulating confluences, this maps their design across time. The chamber blurred around them as the temporal distortion intensified. Unlike his previous transition, Naruto remained partially aware during the process, perhaps due to Bastila's stabilizing presence or his growing familiarity with the phenomenon. I'll find you, he promised as reality fractured around them. Across time if necessary. Bastila's smile held equal parts scholarly fascination and genuine connection. The Force works in mysterious ways. Naruto Uzumaki. Perhaps it brought you here for reasons beyond the architect's design. Her image wavered, becoming translucent as the transition accelerated. In a final moment of clarity before dimensions separated them, Naruto felt her press her forehead briefly against his, a Jedi gesture of respect and connection more intimate than mere words. Remember what we discovered, her voice echoed as she faded from view. Our combined strength disrupted their plans. Whatever convergence they seek, harmony between different paths may be the key to countering it. Then she was gone, the chamber dissolving into a vortex of light and sensation. Naruto experienced the now familiar compression of existence, his consciousness stretched across impossible distances while simultaneously focused to a singular point. When reality reasserted itself, he found himself lying on his back in the ruins of Dantoin's Jedi Enclave, but the ancient, weathered version he'd originally visited with Ahsoka. The meditation circle smoldered with residual energy, equipment scattered and partially melted from the discharge. Naruto. Ahsoka's voice penetrated his disorientation as she knelt beside him, concern evident in her expression. You were gone for almost an hour. What happened? He sat up gingerly, muscles protesting the dimensional transition. The data crystal Bastila had given him remained clutched in his hand, its surface warm against his skin. You wouldn't believe me if I told you, he managed with a weak smile. Try me, Ahsoka challenged, helping him to his feet. After you vanished, the hooded figure escaped in the confusion, called himself an acolyte of the pattern, before he disappeared. The pattern, Naruto repeated, memory crystallizing. That's what they called it, the design they're implementing across time. Ahsoka's expression shifted from concern to focused intensity. Across time, Naruto, where exactly did you go? About 4,000 years into the past, give or take. He answered, examining the data crystal. And I met someone who helped me understand what's happening, at least partly. Who? A Jedi named Bastila Shan. She had an ability called battle meditation that. Bastila Shan. Ahsoka interrupted, eyes widening. The Bastila Shan. From the Jedi Civil War era. Naruto shrugged. I guess. She mentioned a war with the Sith Empire. Ahsoka looked momentarily overwhelmed. Naruto. Bastila Shan is one of the most famous Jedi in the Order's history. Her battle meditation turned the tide of the war against Darth Revan and Malak. She gestured emphatically. And you're saying you met her? Actually interacted with her. More than interacted, Naruto replied, remembering the harmonized meditation technique they'd developed. We discovered something important. When our abilities combined, it created effects neither of us could achieve alone. Effects that disrupted whatever the architects were trying to accomplish. He held up the data crystal. And she gave me this information about nexus points across the galaxy where these dimensional confluences occur. If we can decipher it, we might understand the pattern they're implementing. Ahsoka took the crystal reverently, examining its ancient construction. This is incredible, a genuine artifact from the Old Republic era, containing data no one in our time possesses. She looked up sharply. Wait, you said your abilities combined created unexpected results. Naruto nodded, recalling the sensation of their energies harmonizing. My chakra and her 4CE abilities synchronized instead of just coexisting. It amplified her battle meditation beyond normal parameters. A thoughtful expression crossed Ahsoka's face. That might explain why you're being sent to specific points in time, to interact with particular Force users whose abilities complement yours in ways the architects didn't anticipate. Or perhaps exactly as they anticipated, Naruto countered. Bastila wondered if we were disrupting their plans or unwittingly furthering them. This sobering possibility hung between them as they surveyed the damaged excavation site. Republic Force S had secured the area during Naruto's absence, with clone troopers establishing a perimeter around the ruins. Commander, Rex approached, helmet tucked under his arm. We've analyzed the equipment left by the intruders. Definitely not standard separatist tech. Some components don't match any known manufacturing signature in Republic databases. Preserve everything for transport back to Coruscant, Ahsoka instructed. The Council needs to see this firsthand. As Rex coordinated the recovery operation, Ahsoka turned back to Naruto. Are you all right? Dimensional travel once was bad enough, now time travel on top of it. Naruto conducted a quick internal inventory. His chakra levels had replenished somewhat, and Kurama's presence felt stronger than after the Felucia incident. I'm functioning, he answered honestly. Though I wouldn't mind some food and actual sleep before the next interdimensional crisis. Ahsoka's serious expression softened slightly. That can be arranged. The transport won't be ready until morning anyway. As they walked toward the Republic camp, Naruto found his thoughts returning to Bastila. Despite the brevity of their interaction, the connection they'd established felt significant, a resonance that transcended the temporal distance now separating them. Ahsoka, he began thoughtfully, what happened to Bastila Shan eventually? In your history, she considered the question carefully. The records are incomplete. She played a crucial role in defeating the Sith Empire, then largely disappeared from historical accounts. Some sources suggest Sheila fought the order to pursue independent research into Force phenomena. Research about things like interdimensional confluences. Naruto suggested, possibly, if your interaction with her was as significant as you described, it might have altered her perspective on conventional Force theories. The implication hung unspoken between them. Naruto's presence in the past had potentially influenced historical events in ways neither could fully comprehend. Time travel created paradoxes that defied simple causality. That evening, as Naruto meditated beneath Dantoin's star-filled sky, he reflected on the expanding complexity of his situation. What had begun as a simple dimensional displacement now involved temporal manipulation, ancient prophecies, and a conspiracy spanning millennia. Yet amid these cosmic complexities, he found himself drawn to the personal connections forming in this foreign galaxy. Ahsoka's steadfast support despite institutional skepticism. Bastila's intellectual curiosity, and the unexpected harmony of their combined abilities. Perhaps most intriguing was the possibility that these connections themselves, rather than any single power or technique, might prove crucial to understanding and potentially countering the architect's design. If different energies could harmonize across dimensional boundaries, creating effects greater than their individual components, what other combinations might be possible? As Dantoin's 3 moons rose above the ancient ruins, Naruto closed his eyes, focusing on the lingering resonance from his connection with Bastila. Though separated by thousands of years, the harmonic frequency they'd established remained accessible through meditation, a bridge spanning time itself. I meant what I said, he whispered to the stars. I will find you again. Bastila Shan, whether the architects intended it or not. In the silence that followed, he could almost imagine her response, practical, analytical, yet touched with the wonder of discovery that had briefly united them across the impossible gulf of time. Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, Visions in Darkness. The Jedi Council chamber felt impossibly vast despite its modest dimensions. 12 seats arranged in a perfect circle, occupied by the Order's most revered masters, all focused intently on the shinobi standing at the chamber's center. Coruscant's afternoon sunlight streamed through tall windows, creating alternating patterns of light and shadow across the polished floor. Naruto stood with practiced stillness, hands relaxed at his sides in a posture that projected calm confidence rather than the nervous energy churning beneath his surface. 6 weeks had passed since his return from Dantoin, 6 weeks of intensive debriefings, medical examinations, and increasingly pointed questions from Jedi authorities suspicious of his abilities and origins. Considered your testimony, we have. Master Yoda spoke from his modest seat, ancient eyes evaluating Naruto with unfathomable depth. Unusual. Your situation remains. That's putting it mildly. Naruto replied with a hint of his characteristic directness. Several council members shifted slightly at his informal tone. Mace Windu leaned forward, his stern countenance betraying nothing of his thoughts. The data crystal you recovered from the past contains astronomical calculations beyond our current understanding. Our analysts have verified its age, approximately 4 millennia old, consistent with the era you claim to have visited. I didn't claim anything, Naruto countered evenly. I told you what happened. Yes, Obi-Wan Kenobi interjected smoothly, interdimensional travel followed by temporal displacement. Events unprecedented in recorded Jedi history. Naruto resisted the urge to sigh. The council's skepticism, while understandable, had become tedious over weeks of repetitive questioning. Look, I get it. If someone appeared in Konoha claiming what I'm claiming, I'd be suspicious too. But facts are facts. I'm here. The data crystal's real, and something is manipulating confluences across your galaxy's history. A contemplative silence followed his statement, broken by Jedi Master Plo Koon's modulated voice. The Council's concern isn't merely the validity of your claims, but their implications. If entities are indeed manipulating force nexuses across time, the ramifications for galactic stability are profound. Which is why we should be investigating, not debating, Naruto responded, allowing a hint of frustration to color his words. Ki-Adi-Mundi's elongated head tilted slightly. Patience, young one. The Council must proceed with caution. If these architects have planned across millennia, hasty action could further their designs rather than disrupt them. The discussion might have continued its circular pattern had Ahsoka not entered the chamber, her expression suggesting urgency. She bowed respectfully to the assembled masters before addressing them. Masters, I apologize for the interruption, but intelligence has detected unusual energy signatures at 3 separate locations across the galaxy, identical to the Felucia and Dantoin patterns. This announcement transformed the atmosphere immediately. Master Windu gestured for Ahsoka to elaborate. Mustafar, Naboo, and Mortis, she specified. Each site is experiencing dimensional fluctuations consistent with what we've documented as confluence events. 3 simultaneously. Obi-Wan stroked his beard thoughtfully. That's unprecedented. Yoda closed his eyes briefly, his wizened features concentrating. Accelerating. The pattern is, as predicted by the ancient data. Naruto exchanged glances with Ahsoka, recognizing the significance. The data crystal from Bastila had indeed predicted an acceleration of confluence events. Though the specific timeline had remained unclear until now. Masters, Ahsoka continued, the Naboo readings originate from the sacred places near Theed, areas strong with the living force. Queen Niutni has requested Jedi assistance. Master Windu nodded decisively. Master Kenobi, take Skywalker and investigate the Naboo situation. Master Plo, assemble a team for Mustafar. His gaze shifted to Naruto. As for Mortis, impossible, that is, Yoda interrupted, his tone unusually definitive. A place beyond normal space, Mortis is. Access it, we cannot control. Then we focus on the accessible sites, Windu concluded. The Council will remain in session to coordinate responses. He turned to Ahsoka. Padawan Tano, continue monitoring for additional anomalies. We need immediate notification of any changes. And what about me? Naruto asked directly. The masters exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them that Naruto couldn't interpret. Finally, Yoda spoke. Remain at the temple, you will. If connected to these events you are, safer here you shall be. Naruto recognized the diplomatic phrasing for what it was, polite detention. Before he could object, Obi-Wan addressed him with characteristic diplomacy. Your insights have proven valuable, Naruto. The temple archives contain historical records that might help contextualize your experiences. Perhaps you could review them while we investigate these new anomalies. It was a transparent attempt to keep him occupied and contained, but Naruto recognized the political reality of his situation. Pushing too hard against the Council's authority would only reinforce their suspicions. Fine, he conceded with measured calm. But if another confluence happens, I should be there. Based on previous patterns, I'm somehow part of this whether any of us likes it or not. With that, the Council session concluded. Jedi Masters departed with purposeful strides, ALR. ED communicating battle plans and deployment strategies through comlinks. Ahsoka lingered as the chamber emptied, approaching Naruto with a sympathetic expression. "I'm sorry," she offered quietly. "I've been advocating for your involvement, but the council is cautious." Naruto shrugged, his shoulders relaxing from their formal posture. "It's politics. Same in any world, apparently. Politics with galaxy-wide implications," she corrected, though her tone remained light. "But I understand your frustration." They exited the council chamber together, walking along the temple's grand core corridor where afternoon sunlight cast long shadows through towering columns. Clone troopers stood at regular intervals, their presence a reminder of the Order's increasingly militarized state. "Something feels wrong about all this," Naruto mused as they walked. "The timing, the multiple sites activating simultaneously, it's like we're being maneuvered." Ahsoka nodded. "I've had the same thought. The architects seem to be accelerating their timetable, but why now?" "What changed?" "Me," Naruto answered simply. "My arrival triggered something, or at least coincided with it." They paused before a massive window overlooking Coruscant's endless cityscape, the Senate building visible in the distance like a great mushroom cap rising above the urban sprawl. "What did Master Yoda mean about Mortis?" Naruto asked. He seemed unusually definitive about not investigating it. Ahsoka's expression grew serious. "Mortis is complicated. Master Skywalker, Obi-Wan, and I were pulled there once. T's not exactly a planet, more like a realm where the Force itself is concentrated. We encountered beings who embodied aspects of the Force, the father, son, and daughter. Force entities." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Like tailed beasts in my world. Perhaps, though less physical. They existed as embodiments of balance, dark, and light." She hesitated. "Time behaved differently there. Days passed while only moments elapsed in the outside galaxy. The parallels to Naruto's temporal displacement were striking. And now it's showing confluence readings. Which should be impossible," Ahsoka confirmed. "We couldn't return there even if we wanted to. The father closed the pathway when we left." Further discussion was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the temple's foundation. Both warriors instantly shifted to alert stances, years of combat training triggering immediate situational awareness. "That wasn't normal seismic activity," Ahsoka noted, her montrals twitching. As she sensed vibrations through the air, the temple's alarm klaxons activated, their urgent wailing echoing through marble halls. Clone troopers mobilized with practiced efficiency, taking defensive positions as Jedi emerged from various chambers, lightsabers in hand. Naruto reached out with his senses, detecting a disturbance in the natural energy surrounding the temple. "Something's wrong with the ambient chakra, the Force. It's fluctuating." Commander Rex's voice came through Ahsoka's comlink. "Commander Tano, we have multiple hostiles breaching the temple's lower levels. Profile. Let's match the unknown droids encountered on Dantooine." "Acknowledged, Rex. Secure the younglings and establish a perimeter around the vault level." Ahsoka activated her lightsabers, their white blades humming with energy. "Looks like the architects decided to bring the fight to us." Naruto formed a familiar hand seal. Shadow clone jutsu. A dozen duplicates materialized, immediately dispersing through adjacent corridors to gather intelligence and assist with evacuations. Temple guards streamed past, their double-bladed yellow lightsabers creating golden streaks against the temple's austere interior. The disciplined defenders moved with coordinated precision, yet Naruto sensed uncertainty beneath their composed exteriors. The sacred temple had not faced direct assault in generations. "We should get to the lower levels," Naruto suggested. "If these are the same forces from Dantooine, they're likely after something specific." Ahsoka nodded in agreement. "The most secure artifacts are kept in the deep vaults. If the architects want something from the temple, that's where it would be." They moved swiftly through the temple's labyrinthine interior, descending past chambers and training rooms now being evacuated. Young Jedi initiates were shepherded by their teachers toward safe zones, their wide eyes reflecting confusion and fear despite their training in emotional control. The sounds of battle intensified as they approached the lower levels. Blaster fire echoed against ancient stonework, punctuated by the distinctive hum of lightsabers and shouts of Jedi and clones coordinating defense. Rounding a corner into a grand hallway that led toward the vault complex, they encountered their first enemies, sleek black droids with pulsing violet photoreceptors, more advanced. Than even the commando models Naruto had faced previously. They wielded weapons unlike standard separatist blasters, emitting streams of energy that seemed to distort the air itself. New models, Ahsoka observed grimly, deflecting several shots with practiced precision. The energy signature is unusual, those aren't conventional blasters. Naruto analyzed the droids' movement patterns, noting their sophisticated tactical positioning. They're herding defenders away from that junction, he observed, pointing toward a corridor intersection where clone forces were being systematically pushed back. The ancient studies vault is down that passage, Ahsoka realized. That must be their target. Without further discussion, they charged into the fray. Ahsoka moved like living lightning, her dual lightsabers creating a defensive perimeter that allowed Naruto to advance through the crossfire. He formed a Rasengan in his palm, the spiraling chakra sphere humming with deadly potential. Rasengan. The technique struck the lead droid squarely in its chassis, grinding through advanced armor before detonating with concentrated force. The explosion cleared a momentary path through the droid formation. They pressed the advantage, working with practiced coordination despite their relatively brief partnership. Ahsoka's acrobatic fighting style complemented Naruto's power-focused approach, creating a combination that the droids' tactical programming struggled to counter. Commander, a clone lieutenant called from a defensive position near the vault entrance. They've breached the primary security doors. Team Bravo is pinned down inside. We need to get through, Ahsoka called to Naruto. Ideas. Naruto formed another hand seal, channeling more chakra despite his growing fatigue. Wind style. Breakthrough. The powerful gust slammed into the droid formation, creating momentary confusion in their ranks. Now, Ahsoka leapt forward, lightsabers extended. Naruto followed immediately, both warriors punching through the disrupted droid line and sprinting toward the vault entrance. Inside the vault complex, the situation was deteriorating rapidly. Clone troopers held AF, altering perimeter around a massive durasteel door, its ancient locking mechanism partially melted by precision-cutting tools. 3 robed figures directed the assault, their attire matching the acolyte Naruto had encountered on Dantooine. Jedi an anomaly detected, announced one acolyte, voice modulated through an elaborate mask. Accelerate extraction protocol. I don't think so, Ahsoka retorted, hurling one lightsaber in a controlled arc that severed the nearest droid's head before returning to her hand. The acolytes turned in unison, their masked faces revealing nothing of their reaction. One raised a hand, energy crackling between elongated fingers in a manner unlike any force technique Naruto had witnessed. The convergent one arrives as calculated, the acolyte intoned. Probability matrices confirmed. They expected us, Naruto realized, dropping into a defensive stance. This is a setup. The lead acolyte nodded, the gesture unnaturally precise. The node activates. The pattern progresses. Before either Naruto or Ahsoka could respond, the partially breached vault door erupted with brilliant azure light. Energy cascaded outward in geometric patterns, forming bowls identical to those from the Felucia Temple and Dantooine ruins. It's a confluence trigger, Ahsoka shouted, recognizing the phenomenon from their previous encounters. Naruto felt the familiar resonance between his chakra network and the emerging energy field, the distinctive pull that preceded temporal displacement. They're forcing another transition. Not this time, Ahsoka declared, plunging her lightsabers into the stone floor and channeling force energy through the blades to anchor herself. She reached for Naruto, attempting to establish a physical connection that might prevent his displacement. The acolytes observed with clinical detachment, making no move to interfere. The pathway opens, one commented, tone suggesting satisfaction. The sequence continues. Naruto strained against the dimensional pull, chakra flaring around his body as he resisted the transition. His hand stretched toward Ahsoka's, their fingers almost connecting. Naruto, she called, voice distorting as reality wavered between them. Find the pattern. We'll track you through the. Her words dissolved into unintelligible fragments as the confluence reached critical intensity. The last thing Naruto saw was the acolytes forming a triangle formation around the vault door, their combined energies feeding the dimensional rift. Then darkness consumed everything. Consciousness returned gradually, sound preceding sight. Distant mechanical hums. The soft ping of monitoring equipment. The rhythmic whisper of a ventilation system. Naruto opened his eyes to unfamiliar surroundings, a circular chamber with smooth metallic walls, illuminated by recessed lighting that cast no shadows. He lay on a narrow medical platform, unrestrained but connected to monitoring devices through wire. SS sensors attached to his temples and wrists. The subject regains consciousness, announced a melodic female voice from hidden speakers. Biometric readings stabilizing. Naruto sat up cautiously, scanning the chamber for threats or exits. A single door marked the otherwise featureless room, its surface lacking any obvious opening mechanism. The monitoring equipment beside his bed displayed incomprehensible data in a script he didn't recognize. "Where am I?" he demanded, removing the sensor pads from his skin. "Who's speaking?" A hidden panel in the wall slid aside, revealing a transparisteel observation window. Beyond it stood two figures, one a tall, slender being with pale blue skin and elongated features suggesting non-human lineage, the other a humanoid female wearing an elber. Mask that completely covered her eyes and upper face. Remarkable recovery rate, the blue-skinned being noted, consulting a data pad. Quantum displacement usually causes prolonged cellular disruption. Yet his patterns stabilized within hours. The masked woman remained silent, her head tilted slightly as though studying Naruto with intense concentration despite her covered eyes. "I can hear you," Naruto pointed out, standing to face the observation window. "And I asked a question." The blue alien appeared momentarily startled, then composed himself with clinical professionalism. "My apologies. I am Dr. Zellian, chief researcher at the Telos Restoration Project Medical Facility. You were discovered unconscious at an archaeological excavation in the polar region." Telos. The name meant nothing to Naruto. "What planet is that? What system?" "Telos IV, Quimar Sector," Zellian replied with growing curiosity. "You don't know where you are." "It's complicated," Naruto admitted, assessing the medical chamber for potential escape routes should the situation deteriorate. "What year is it?" This question visibly startled the doctor. "An unusual inquiry. It is the year 3951 BBY by Republic Standard Calendar." The dating system matched what Bastila had used, allowing Naruto to calculate his temporal position. He had moved forward approximately 5 years from his encounter with Bastila, but remained roughly 300 years before Ahsoka's time. "I need to speak with local Jedi authorities," Naruto stated firmly. "This involves matters of galactic security." Dr. Zellian exchanged glances with the masked woman, an unspoken communication passing between them. "There are few Jedi remaining after the recent conflicts," he explained cautiously. "The Order was nearly exterminated in the Jedi Civil War, and those who survived faced a subsequent purge by Sith assassins." This revelation hit Naruto with unexpected force. He had spent sufficient time in Ahsoka's era to understand the Jedi's central role in Republic governance. Their near extinction represented a catastrophic shift in galactic power dynamics. Before he could process this information, the masked woman spoke for the first time. Her voice soft yet resonant with unusual harmonics. "He speaks truth about being displaced," she observed, addressing Zellian rather than Naruto directly. "His essence bears the marks of temporal transition. I see pathways through him that stretch beyond conventional perception." Her statement silenced the doctor, who regarded his companion with new respect. "You're certain, Visas, as certain as one can be when facing unprecedented phenomena," she replied. Her head turned back toward Naruto, and despite her covered eyes, he felt the weight of her scrutiny. "You carry shadows and light from other times. Traveler, your presence distorts the force around you like ripples in still water." "You can see that?" Naruto questioned, intrigued despite his precarious situation. A small, enigmatic smile curved her lips. "I see only through the force. My people, the Miraluka, perceive reality through its currents rather than physical light." This explained the mask. Covering her eyes, she had no need for conventional vision. Naruto reassessed the woman with new understanding, recognizing a sensory system analogous to his sage mode perception. "Doctor," she continued, "I believe our security protocols are unnecessary. This individual poses no immediate threat to the restoration project." Zellian appeared unconvinced. The energy discharge that accompanied High's appearance damaged sensitive equipment and disrupted shield harmonics across 2 restoration zones. The Ithorian Committee will demand explanations. Which I can provide, Visas countered with quiet authority. Once I've spoken with him privately. Something in her tone brooked no argument. After a moment's hesitation, Zelian nodded reluctantly. I'll inform Administrator Zerka, but security monitors will remain active, and guards will be stationed outside. As you wish, she conceded, though her tone suggested the precautions were unnecessary. When Zelian departed, the observation window dimmed to opacity, presumably providing privacy from external monitoring. The door to Naruto's chamber hissed open, admitting Visa's Marr. Up close, her presence carried a depth Naruto hadn't perceived through the barrier. She wore fitted armor of burgundy and charcoal beneath a hooded robe, its design suggesting functionality rather than ceremonial purpose. Her mask, crafted from some unknown metallic alloy, covered the upper half of her face in an elegant design that followed the contours of her features while revealing nothing of the eyes beneath. You're not from this time, she stated without preamble, remaining near the doorway, nor entirely from this reality. Naruto saw little point in deception. No, I've been displaced multiple times now, first from my home dimension into your galaxy, then across different points in its history. Dimensional transit explains the unusual energy patterns in your essence, Visas observed, head tilting slightly. You possess power that resonates differently from the Force, yet harmonizes with it in unexpected ways. You can actually see my chakra network? Naruto asked, fascinated by her perception. I see energy flows, connections, patterns, she explained. Where others might perceive physical form, I observe the underlying currents that animate matter. Your energy system is beautiful in its complexity, different from anything I've encountered. The clinical observation carried no romantic overtones, yet Naruto found himself unexpectedly affected by her description. Few people in any reality had perceived his chakra nature so comprehensively. Your perception is impressive, he acknowledged. In my world, it would be considered a formidable Kekkei Genkai, a bloodline ability. The Miraluka do not consider it special. Visas replied with a hint of gentle amusement. It is simply how we exist. She moved further into the room with graceful precision. But we must address more pressing matters. Your Ariva L corresponds with disturbing fluctuations in the Force, patterns of observed forming over recent months. The architects, Naruto suggested. And something called the pattern. Visas became perfectly still, her composed demeanor showing its first crack. You know of them, only fragments. They're manipulating confluence points across time, nexus locations where dimensions grow thin. I've been pulled through multiple transitions, each time encountering individuals with specific Force abilities. Not coincidence, then, Visas murmured, more to herself than to Naruto. The calculated intersections of fate. She approached the monitoring equipment, fingers tracing controls with practiced familiarity despite her blindness. The wall display shifted to show a galactic map with highly GHTED regions forming a complex web of interconnections. For the past standard year, I've tracked unusual Force disturbances across the outer rim, she explained. Meditation sites, ancient temples, Kyber crystal caves, all exhibiting harmonic resonances outside normal parameters. The pattern matched what Naruto had seen in Bastila's era, though with different active nodes. It's evolving, he realized. The pattern changes across time periods. Yes, Visas confirmed, like a living equation adjusting its variables. She turned toward him, head inclined thoughtfully. You've encountered others involved in this phenomenon. Naruto described his experiences, the initial displacement to Ahsoka's time, the subsequent transition to Bastila's era, and now this new period. As he spoke, Visas listened with complete attention, occasionally nodding as connections formed in her understanding. 3 transitions, 3 distinct Force users with specialized perceptive abilities, she summarized when he finished. Ahsoka Tano with Montrals capable of sensing beyond normal Jedi range, Bastila Shan with rare battle meditation, and now myself with Miraluka sight. You think that's why I'm being sent to specific people? Naruto questioned. Because of your unique perceptive abilities. It seems probable, Visas acknowledged. Particularly given the nature of what we face. The architects operate beyond conventional perception. Manipulating reality across dimensional boundaries requires individuals capable of perceiving those boundaries. The theory aligned with Naruto's experiences. With Bastila, our abilities combined in unexpected ways, created effects neither could achieve alone. She called it harmonic synthesis. Visas nodded slowly. The resonance of complementary frequencies. A principle fundamental to Mirluka understanding of the Force. Her head tilted in sudden realization. That may be what the architects seek to prevent, or perhaps to harness. Before she could elaborate, the facility's alarm system activated with strident urgency. Red emergency lighting bathed the chamber as a computerized voice announced, "Security breach in Northern Excavation Sector. All personnel initiate emergency protocols." The door slid open as Dr. Zellian reappeared, his blue features paler with evident stress. "We're under attack. Unknown forces have breached the Polar Research Facility." "The excavation site?" Visas questioned sharply. "Yes. They bypassed external security completely, appeared inside the containment dome without triggering perimeter alarms." Zellian's gaze shifted nervously to Naruto. Their arrival created energy signatures identical to those recorded when he appeared. Naruto met Visas's masked gaze. "The architect's acolytes. They're following me through the transitions." Quote, "Or arrived independently through predetermined coordinates," she countered. "Either possibility is concerning." She turned to Zellian. "We must reach the excavation. Whatever they seek lies there." The doctor appeared conflicted. "The Ithorian Committee has ordered full evacuation. Security forces will be insufficient," Visas interrupted firmly. Quote, "This threat exists beyond conventional parameters." She gestured toward Naruto. "We require his assistance." Zellian's professional composure wavered visibly. "He remains an unknown quantity." Administrator Zerka explicitly ordered. "I witnessed the destruction of my homeworld, Doctor," Visas interrupted, her soft voice carrying unexpected weight. "I alone survived Qatar because I could see what others could not. Trust my judgment now." The statement silenced his objections. After a moment's consideration, Zellian nodded reluctantly. "Very well, but I must report this deviation from protocol." Noted. Visas acknowledged without concern. She turned to Naruto. "Your equipment was secured in laboratory storage. We should retrieve it before proceeding to the excavation site." Naruto owed as they navigated the facility's corridors, now bustling with personnel implementing evacuation procedures. Security officers maintained controlled comm while research staff gathered essential data and equipment. Through transparisteel viewports, Naruto glimpsed the facility's exterior, a vast biodome covering what appeared to be a restoration project transforming barren landscape into habitable terrain. "What exactly are they excavating here?" he asked as they entered a secure storage area where his equipment pouch and weapons had been carefully catalogued. "Remnants of an ancient structure predating Republic colonization," Visas explained while Naruto reclaimed his gear. Initial surveys suggested Rakatan origin, but deeper excavation revealed architecture inconsistent with known Infinite Empire design principles. "Meaning it's older." Naruto secured his kunai pouch at his thigh, the familiar weight reassuring after hours of confinement. "Or from outside conventional historical lineage entirely," Visas clarified. "The structure contains symbols matching those found at other sites experiencing dimensional fluctuations." Fully equipped and mentally prepared for confrontation, Naruto nodded his readiness. "Then let's find out what the architects want with it." They requisitioned a surface transport, a sleek, enclosed speeder designed for Telos's partially restored environment. Visas piloted with surprising dexterity despite her blindness, navigating the restoration zone's winding routes between reclaimed sectors where plants had been reintroduced to the once devastated ecosystem. "Your world was destroyed?" Naruto asked carefully as they traveled, recalling her earlier comment. Visas's hands remained steady on the controls, but a subtle tension appeared in her posture. "Qatar, a Mirluka colony world. We gathered there with Jedi Masters to discuss the growing threat of the Sith. Our combined force sensitivity was meant to provide insight." Her voice remained controlled, but Naruto sensed the pain beneath her composed exterior. Instead, it drew Darth Nihilus, a wound in the force who consumed life energy. He devoured the planet's force essence. Every living being died instantly. "Except you," Naruto observed quietly. "He kept me alive, made me his servant, his herald. Through me, he could perceive potential feeding grounds." Clinical detachment couldn't entirely mask the horror of her experience. "I served until the exile freed me, showed me another path." The parallel to Naruto's own history wasn't lost on him. His status as Kura Ma's Jinchuriki had shaped his early life in ways both traumatic and eventually transformative. Though their experiences differed dramatically in specifics, he recognized the struggle to define oneself beyond the darkness one had contained. "I understand carrying darkness inside," he offered simply. "My partner Kurama was once considered a monster, a being of pure destructive chakra. People feared and hated me for containing him." Viza's head turned slightly toward him, though she maintained perfect control of their vehicle. "Yet I sense no darkness in your bond now, only harmony and mutual respect." "It took years to reach that point," Naruto admitted. "A lot of pain on both sides. As with all worthwhile evolution," Viza observed. "The exile taught me that scars need not define our future path." Their conversation paused as they approached the excavation site, a massive dome covering several square kilometers of Telos's polar region. Even from a distance, Naruto could sense the unusual energy emanating from the structure, a resonance distinct from normal force patterns. "Something's wrong," Viza stated suddenly, her head tilting as though listening to frequencies beyond normal perception. "The force currents are fragmenting." She accelerated their transport toward the primary entrance, where security personnel were establishing defensive positions around the dome's access points. A Republic officer intercepted them as they disembarked. "Ma'am, the site's been quarantined. We have unknown hostiles inside and some kind of energy distortion affecting communications." "What's their target?" Viza's questioned directly. "Central excavation chamber, level 3. They bypassed all security systems, just appeared inside like they walked through the walls." The officer's professional composure showed cracks of genuine concern. "We've lost contact with the research team assigned to the chamber. We need immediate access," Viza stated with quiet authority. The officer hesitated. "Director Zerka ordered complete lockdown until Republic reinforcements arrive. By which time it will be too late," she countered. "This threat operates beyond conventional parameters. I have relevant expertise and authorization from Administrator Darden." Naruto sensed the slight deception. She likely had no such authorization, but the officer's resistance crumbled under her confident assertion. With reluctant efficiency, he provided security clearances and a situation briefing before allowing them passage into the facility. Inside, the dome's vast interior, revealed a sprawling excavation encompassing what appeared to be an ancient temple or astronomical observation center. Massive stone arches emerged from the ice, their surfaces covered with symbols reminiscent of those Naruto had encountered at previous confluence sites. Security teams maintained defensive positions around the perimeter, while scientific personnel evacuated with research materials. "The central chamber is 5 levels down," Viza explained as they navigated through the organized chaos. Initial surveys suggested it functioned as some kind of dimensional observatory, a facility for monitoring cosmic alignments. Like the chamber beneath Dantoin's meditation circle, Naruto observed, recognizing conceptual similarities despite architectural differences. "Yes, though, significantly larger and more sophisticated." Viza paused near a turbolift shaft, her head tilting in concentration. "The disturbance is intensifying. We should proceed with caution." They descend via emergency access ladders rather than turbolifts, avoiding potential technological vulnerabilities. As they reached the third sublevel, the ambient temperature noticeably increased, unusual in a polar excavation where environmental systems typically struggled to maintain habitable warmth. "The air feels wrong," Naruto noted, sensing disturbances in the natural energy flow. "Like reality is thinning." "Yes," Viza confirmed. "The barriers between dimensions weaken. This facility may have been designed specifically for that purpose." The sublevel corridor led toward a massive chamber artially excavated from ice and permafrost. Ancient architecture merged with natural cavern formations, creating a space that seemed to exist partially outside conventional geometry. As they approached the chamber entrance, Naruto detected familiar energy signatures. "The acolytes are inside," he warned, drawing a kunai. "At least 3, maybe more." Viza unclipped an unusual lightsaber from her belt, its design more angular than the Jedi weapons Naruto had previously encountered. "They seek to establish a stable confluence point, a permanent bridge between times or dimensions." "Which would be bad, I'm guessing." "Catastrophic," she corrected solemnly. Reality maintains coherence through separation. Permanent bridges would create cascade failures across the dimensional membrane. With silent coordination born of respective combat experience, they positioned themselves at the chamber entrance, assessing the situation before engaging. Within the vast space, 6 robed acolytes ranged themselves in a precise hexagonal formation around what appeared to be an ancient technological device emerging from the chamber floor, a spire of black material embedded with pulsing crystalline components. The Nexus Spire. Visa's breathed, recognition evident in her voice. The texts described it, but most believed it mythological. The acolytes chanted in unison, their voices creating harmonics that resonated with the chamber's unusual acoustic properties. Energy flowed between them and the spire in visible streams, forming complex geometric patterns in the air between. Dimensional calcification protocols initiated, announced one acolyte, voice amplified by the chamber acoustics. Confluence stabilization at 27% and rising. We need to disrupt their formation, Naruto whispered. Analyzing potential attack vectors. Break the energy circuit they're creating. Visas nodded in agreement. The spire functions as a focal point. Destabilize it, and the confluence should collapse. Without further discussion, they launched their assault with complementary precision. Naruto created shadow clones that attacked from multiple angles simultaneously, while Visas activated her lightsaber, its crimson blade suggesting Sith origin despite her evident alignment with light. Intrusion detected, called one acolyte, breaking formation to counter the unexpected threat. Convergent anomaly identified, protocol shift authorized. The disruption created an immediate effect. The energy patterns surrounding the spire fluctuated, geometric precision giving way to unstable configurations. 3 acolytes maintained their positions, continuing the chant with intensified focus, while the others engaged the intruders. Naruto's clones pressed the initial advantage, forcing the acolytes to defend against simultaneous attacks from multiple vectors. Unlike the emotionless efficiency of their droids, the acolytes displayed remarkable adaptability, countering WITH techniques that blended technological enhancement with force manipulation. Visas moved with unexpected grace and lethal precision, her fighting style unlike either Ahsoka's acrobatic approach or Bastila's methodical efficiency. She flowed between opponents like water, her crimson blade finding openings in their defenses with uncanny accuracy. Despite her blindness, or perhaps because of her unique perception, she anticipated movements before they occurred. The anomaly must be contained, declared the lead acolyte, abandoning the formation entirely as the situation deteriorated. Convergent protocols compromised. Initiate temporal dispersion. Energy surged from the spire in chaotic waves, bathing the chamber in fluctuating light that distorted spatial perception. Naruto felt the familiar resonance of dimensional transition beginning to build, but with a different quality than previous experiences, less controlled, more volatile. They're destabilizing the confluence deliberately. Visas called, disengaging from her opponent to move toward the spire. If the energy disperses uncontrolled. Her warning was interrupted as reality rippled around them. Portions of the Shan seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously, ice and stone and emptiness occupying the same space in impossible configurations. Naruto pushed through the spatial distortion, focusing chakra to maintain his physical integrity as dimensions began bleeding into one another. We need to shut it down. The acolytes had abandoned their original objective, now working frantically to contain He destabilizing energies their ritual had awakened. One turned toward Naruto, features barely visible beneath an elaborate mask. The convergent one accelerates the pattern, the acolyte stated with eerie calm despite the chaos surrounding them. Probability matrices reorient. Before Naruto could respond, the acolyte pressed a crystalline device against the spire's surface. Energy cascaded out the ancient technology in renewed patterns, focusing with laser precision toward Naruto's position. Visas, he shouted in warning, but the dimensional fluctuations intensified beyond his ability to resist. The Miraluka abandoned her engagement, moving toward him with impossible speed. Her hand stretched out, fingers splayed as she channeled force energy to counter the building transition. I see the pathways, she called. Her voice strangely doubled as reality fragmented around them. The pattern becomes visible through disruption. Their fingers connected just as the dimensional surge reached critical threshold. Unlike previous transitions where Naruto had been pulled alone through space and time, this connection created something unprecedented, a shared displacement that enveloped them both in the temporal vortex. Consciousness stretched and compressed simultaneously. Naruto experienced multiple timelines as overlapping possibilities, glimpses of alternate paths and divergent histories flashing through his awareness. Throughout the disorienting transit, one constant remained: Vizs's presence anchored to his own, their energies intertwined in mutual stabilization. Reality reasserted itself with jarring abruptness. They materialized in a location entirely different from the Telos excavation, a shadowed chamber constructed from obsidian material similar to the Nexus Spire but on a vastly larger scale. Dim illumination revealed walls covered with mathematical equations and astronomical charts reminiscent of the chamber beneath Dantoin's meditation circle. "Where are we?" Naruto asked, his voice sounding flat in the room's perfect acoustics. Vizs oriented herself with remarkable composure given their sudden transition. "When might be the more relevant question," she observed. "The force currents suggest temporal displacement, but..." She paused, head tilting in concentration. "Something is different. The dimensional resonance has shifted fundamental parameters." Naruto extended his senses, gathering natural energy to enter Sage mode. The familiar process completed with unusual efficiency, suggesting enhanced force presence in their surroundings. With perception heightened, he detected subtle differences in the cosmic energy permeating reality itself. "It's like we're between times," he suggested, struggling to articulate the sensation. "Not fully in any one period." "Yes," Vizs agreed. "A junction point in the temporal current." She moved toward the chamber's center where a pedestal emerged from the obsidian floor. This facility exists partially outside conventional time-space. A dimensional observatory, as theorized. The pedestal featured controls of unfamiliar design, not mechanical interfaces but crystalline formations ranged in patterns suggesting mathematical functions. Vizs traced these configurations with practiced precision despite never having encountered this specific technology before. "The architecture resembles Rakatan design principles, yet implements concepts beyond their known capabilities," she observed. "Perhaps collaborative development with another species." Naruto approached the chamber's perimeter where massive viewport-like apertures revealed not exterior landscape but swirling cosmic phenomena, galaxies and nebulae impossible to view from any planetary surface. "This isn't showing what's outside," he realized. "It's showing different points in space-time." "Yes," Vizs confirmed, continuing her examination of the control pedestal. "This facility was designed to observe and potentially influence confluence events across galactic history." A subtle vibration passed through the chamber, causing the crystalline controls to resonate in harmonic patterns. Vizs straightened, her posture alert. "We're not alone," she stated quietly. "Another presence observes." Naruto had sensed it too, a consciousness vast yet fragmented, perceiving them through means beyond conventional senses. Unlike the malevolence of the architect's acolytes, this awareness conveyed ancient curiosity. "We mean no harm," Naruto addressed the unseen presence directly. "We're trying to understand what's happening across time and space." The chamber's illumination shifted subtly, crystals pulsing in rhythmic sequence. The mathematical equations displayed on surrounding walls rearranged themselves into new configurations. "It's responding," Vizs translated, her Miraluka perception interpreting patterns invisible to normal sight. "Not in language but in conceptual mathematics. It recognizes your unique signature across multiple dimensional intersections." The invisible presence intensified, focusing attention specifically on Naruto. He felt a probing sensation unlike previous force techniques he'd encountered. Not invasive but comprehensive, analyzing his entire being from cellular structure to chakra network. "What does it want?" he asked, remaining still despite the uncomfortable scrutiny. Vizs observed the changing equations with focused concentration. "It seeks to understand how you traverse dimensional boundaries while maintaining coherence. Your existence represents a theoretical impossibility according to its established parameters." "Tell it that's pretty much the story of my life," Naruto replied with characteristic determination. "Impossible is just another obstacle to overcome." Whether responding to his words or merely completing its analysis, the presence withdrew slightly. The chamber's crystalline elements reconfigured, and a three-dimensional projection Tian materialized above the central pedestal, a representation of the galaxy with specific points illuminated and connected by energy pathways. The pattern, Visas identified immediately. More complete than any version I've observed. Naruto recognized similarities to what he'd seen in Bastila's era, though with significant expansions and modifications. It's evolved. Grown more complex. Not evolved, Visas corrected. Studying the projection with her unique perception. This shows the complete design across all time periods. Previous versions were merely fragments visible within specific temporal windows. The projection zoomed to highlight particular nexus points, each pulsing in sequence to demonstrate a chronological progression. Specific coordinates illuminated with greater intensity, Felucia, Dantoin, Telos. And others Naruto didn't recognize. It's showing us your transition points, Visas realized. The locations where you've moved through time and space. Why? Naruto questioned. What is this place? And why is it helping us? The mathematical equations shifted again, forming patterns that Visas interpreted with growing concern. This facility was created by beings it refers to as the Preservers, an ancient species that recognized the danger of dimensional instability. They constructed observatories like this to monitor and maintain cosmic boundaries. And the architects are threatening those boundaries, Naruto concluded. Yes. Visas' voice grew solemn. According to these equations, the architects seek to create a specific pattern of diamonds. Ional rifts, a calculated sequence that, once completed, would allow them to rewrite fundamental cosmic constants. Rewrite reality itself, Naruto translated, the implication staggering. Why would anyone want that? Power beyond conventional understanding, Visas suggested. The ability to exist simultaneously across all possible timelines, to transcend the limitations of singular dimensional existence. The projection shifted again, focusing on a specific location near the galaxy's core, a nexus point pulsing with ominous intensity. The culmination point, Visas identified, where all confluence lines intersect. If the pattern completes, this location becomes the focal point for dimensional restructuring. Naruto studied the coordinates, committing them to memory. Then we prevent the pattern from completing. Break the sequence before it reaches this point. It may not be so simple, Visas cautioned. Your transitions between points appear to be integral to the pattern's progression. Each displacement advances their design, even as we attempt to counter it. This troubling observation aligned with concerns Bastila had expressed. Were they unwittingly furthering the architect's plans through their very efforts to oppose them? Before they could explore this paradox further, the chamber shuddered violently. The viewports showing distant galaxies flickered, cosmic vistas replaced momentarily by glimpses of a more immediate threat, robed figures navigating a facility of similar design, systematically disabling ancient security systems. The acolytes, Naruto recognized immediately. They've found this place. Not exactly, Visas corrected, analyzing the fragmented images. This observatory exists in a dimensional pocket partially outside normal space-time. They're breaching a similar facility that intersects with this one across dimensional boundaries. The unseen presence that had been communicating with them withdrew suddenly, energy patterns FTing from calm observation to alert defense. Throughout the chamber, dormant systems activated with building intensity. The observatory is implementing containment protocols, Visas interpreted, monitoring the mathematical equations flowing across the walls. It perceives the architects as an existential threat to cosmic stability. Another violent tremor shook the chamber as reality itself seemed to compress around them. The dimensional viewports flickered rapidly between cosmic vistas and glimpses of the acolytes, advance, suggesting barriers between realities were thinning dangerously. We can't stay here, Naruto decided, assessing their deteriorating situation. If the acolytes breach this place, they could access information about the entire pattern. Visas nodded in agreement, her attention returning to the control pedestal. The observatory is offering a transition pathway, controlled dimensional displacement to a specific nexus point. Can we choose the destination? Naruto asked, hope rising at the possibility of returning to Ahsoka's time. Not precisely, Visas replied with regret. The pathway parameters are constrained by the current confluence configuration. It can send us to the next sequential nexus in the pattern, but not outside the established sequence. Another tremor, more violent than previous disturbances, indicated their time was running short. The acolytes were progressing through whatever parallel facility intersected with this dimensional pocket. Then we take what we can get, Naruto decided pragmatically. Better a controlled jump than waiting for them to capture us here. Quote, Visas placed her hands on specific crystalline formations, channeling force energy to activate the transition protocol. The pedestal responded immediately, see. Crystals illuminating with building intensity as dimensional calculations processed with impossible speed. The pathway initializes, she announced, monitoring the process with her unique perception. We have moments only. Naruto moved to her side, preparing for the transition. Will we arrive together? Previous jumps separated me from companions. Unknown, Visas admitted, but I'm establishing a force bond between us, a connection that may transcend dimensional boundaries. Her free hand found his, fingers intertwining with surprising warmth despite the clinical nature of her explanation. Focus on this connection during transit. The chamber's illumination intensified to blinding levels as the transition pathway reached activation threshold. Reality thinned around them, dimensions separating like layers of a complex fabric. Remember what we've learned, Visas instructed as the transition accelerated. The pattern is a calculated sequence. Each nexus point serves specific mathematical functions in their design. And our combined abilities disrupt those calculations, Naruto added, recalling similar experiences with Bastila and Ahsoka. Yes, her grip on his hand tight. Ned as dimensional forces threatened to separate them. Find others whose abilities complement yours. Create harmonics the architects cannot predict. The transition reached critical intensity, reality. Tie dissolving around them into pure energy and potential. Unlike previous displacements, Naruto remained partially conscious throughout the process, anchored by Visas's force connection. Through this tenuous link, he perceived fragments of her perception, reality viewed not through physical light but through force currents and energy patterns. The experience was disorienting yet profoundly illuminating, offering glimpses of existence beyond conventional understanding. Most striking was how she perceived him, not as physical form but as a complex energy matrix where chakra and force intermeet. NGLED in patterns unique across dimensional boundaries. Through her perception, he glimpsed aspects of himself previously hidden from awareness. The transition accelerated beyond their ability to maintain connection. Visas's presence faded gradually rather than abruptly, her final communication reaching him through their temporary bond rather than spoken words. The confluence brings purpose beyond the architect's design. Trust the connections formed across time. Asterisk. Then separation, as dimensions realigned and reality reasserted fundamental parameters. Naruto experienced the now familiar compression and expansion of consciousness before materialization in new surroundings. He opened his eyes to crimson skies and a shattered landscape, a world wounded by forces beyond conventional warfare. Cracked earth stretched toward distant mountains whose peaks glowed with volcanic activity. The air carried the acrid scent of chemicals and lingering electrical discharge. Disoriented but intact, Naruto took inventory of his situation. His equipment remained with him this time, perhaps due to the controlled nature of the transition. Physical condition seemed optimal despite the dimensional displacement. Kurama's presence within his consciousness registered stronger than after previous transitions, suggesting the controlled pathway had maintained their connection more effectively. Another jump, the fox observed with characteristic dry humor. You're making a habit of impossible dimensional travel, Kit. Not by choice, Naruto replied internally, grateful for the familiar connection. Any idea where we are this time? Another part of this foreign galaxy, obviously, Kurama responded. Though this world reeks of violence and death. Recent, powerful destruction. The observation matched Naruto's assessment. Whatever cataclysm had damaged this landscape had occurred recently enough that nature hadn't begun reclamation. He focused chakra to enter sage mode, extending senses beyond normal parameters to gather environmental information. The results were disturbing. Natural energy flows showed severe disruption patterns consistent with massive force discharge. Life signatures registered at minimal levels compared to typically habitable planets. Most concerning, the dimensional stability he'd come to recognize through multiple transitions showed hairline fractures throughout the surrounding area, reality itself wounded by whatever event had devastated this world. This entire planet is a confluence point, he realized aloud. But not naturally OCC. artificially created through massive energy discharge. His contemplation was interrupted by approaching engine sounds, a vehicle navigating the broken landscape with practiced skill. Naruto maintained his position, sensing no immediate threat from the new arrival. The transport that crested the nearby ridge was unlike previous designs he'd encountered, more angular, its armor plating suggesting military application rather than civilian use. It slowed as its sensors presumably detected his presence, coming to rest 30 meters from his position. The hatch opened to reveal a figure in fitted armor of unfamiliar design, her features hidden behind an environmental mask necessary in the planet's compromised atmosphere. She approached with cautious professionalism, one hand resting near a holstered blaster while the other carried scanning equipment. Unidentified humanoid, she addressed him in accented basic. This sector remains under Republic quarantine following the mass shadow generator incident. Identify yourself and state your purpose. Naruto recognized another nexus point in the pattern, another connection forming as the architect's design progressed. Whatever role this armored woman would play in the unfolding dimensional crisis, she represented the next sequence in his journey through time and space. With calm determination born from multiple similar encounters, he offered the response that had become his standard introduction across timelines. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. As for my purpose here, that's going to take some explanation. Chapter 3 End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.